Ex-wife opened 2 credit cards in my name in the amount of $6,000. She's threatening to withhold my visitation rights for our son if I turn her in. This is a sad situation, but after my divorce, I ended up moving about 30 miles away where I bought a house and got a job transfer. The divorce was finalized about 4 years ago. She got primary custody as she lives in the school district, though I get most weekends and holidays. We've been fairly cordial about it and it's been working for a while. Eventually, I'd like to get to a 50-50 as she'll be moving to a different school district once he hits high school shortly and I just move into that district. My problem is that my ex has opened up a couple of credit cards in my name. I had no idea this was happening until I received a letter from a collection agency. It was pretty obvious she was the one who opened the accounts as the address on the accounts are hers and it looks like the statements are from mainly where she shops. When I dropped our son off on Monday, I told her I found the accounts and I'd have to go to the police unless she paid them off completely right away. She denied it at first, then said if I went to the police, she'd disallow visitation for safety reasons. Unfortunately, she'd be able to do this, and has done so in the past, requiring me to go back to court with my lawyer to force her to follow the parenting agreement. That's how I gained all holidays shortly after the divorce, basically as a punishment for failing to comply with the parenting order, but still allowing her to be the custodial parent. I don't want my son to have to go through this, but I am certainly not taking the hit to my credit for what she's doing. I'm probably going to make the report, but is there anything else I'd be missing her? Comments. Commenter 1. Copying this for every identity theft situation I see on here, since it seems to happen a lot, where you know who the person is who stole your identity. This is all information you can find in this sub and others. 1. Call the police. You're the victim of identity theft, plain and simple. It doesn't matter who did it or what your relationship is to them. They broke the law, now they have to face the consequences of their actions. 2. Freeze your credit. You want to make sure it doesn't happen again, take the proactive route of freezing your credit. 3. Monitor and track your credit. You need to be alerted if anyone tries opening a line of credit in your name. This gives you a way to do it and it shows your credit score. 4. Warn anyone else who might be a victim. This includes family members or anyone else whose social security number might be compromised by the thief. 5. Take the police report to the credit bureaus, give them the report number when you dispute all of the accounts. Most of the time, that will be enough for them to take the accounts off of your credit. It's on the creditors themselves to prove the accounts are legitimately yours and the bureaus aren't going to get in the middle of it. A police report goes a long way in clearing up your credit. Don't take identity theft lying down, even if it's someone close to you. If you let them get away with it, get ready for 5 to 10 years of bad credit, collection agencies coming after you, lawsuits, etc. When you're making your report to the police, I'd let them know exactly what she said regarding her intent to prevent you from seeing your kid. What sucks is you'll probably have to go back to court over it. Give your lawyer a copy of the police report for this and I would imagine they would be able to use it against your ex when you inevitably end up back in front of a judge. Commenter 2. In addition to this credit throwaway 2, do not let your ex bully you into not contacting the police. Record down the conversation you had where she threatened to use the kids against you. That's against the law. Additionally, let her withhold access to the kids. That will work favorably to you within the courts. Make sure to document why she's withholding the kids, preferably in writing. People will easily incriminate themselves when given the opportunity. Parental alienation is fucked up and I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. Update. There's some good and some bad unfortunately. Since this started several months ago she has been horrible. I went to the police regarding the credit card accounts, getting the report was painless and they said it happens a lot. Both of the credit cards have dropped off my credit report. My credit is back to normal and I've set up a credit monitor and to make sure it doesn't happen again. It doesn't look like she's going to be prosecuted for opening the cards in my name. I was told when I made the report it would be up to the credit card companies to cooperate with the prosecutors if they wanted to go through with fraud charges. Apparently they don't cooperate most of the time, but I can still ask the county to prosecute on behalf of myself, which I did. In November I got a form letter saying they wouldn't be prosecuting my case. I asked a criminal defense lawyer I know about it and he said the county maybe goes forward with 10% of criminal cases where people get arrested, it's nearly zero where there is no probable cause for an arrest. He said his job is basically just working out deals for clearly guilty people. He also said to let it go at this point, so I've come to terms with the fact that she's not going to give criminal charges and probably not even a lawsuit. She also did exactly what she said she would do and stopped letting me see our son. I've documented every single instance, about 30 total, since September that she's failed to follow our court-ordered custody agreement. I finally got her served at work, that's another thing I don't like about family courts, and she claimed I was abusive and manipulative. I had the police report for the credit cards and basically said the visitation violations started the week after I made the report. The judge basically gave her a final chance to follow the order before he would grant an alteration and she'd possibly face criminal charges. The first child exchange after the hearing a couple weeks ago, she said she needs more child support and alimony, asking for an extra $1,500 per month. I told her absolutely not. Last week I went to pick him up, she never showed up and I got a documentation number from the police. Next day, new account detected, email. I got the account cancelled before the card was even sent to her address. Froze my credit, made another report, waiting for the "will not prosecute" letter. She's failed to show up with him ever since. Got her served at work and our new hearing is in a week and a half. I know eventually things are going to work out, but she's really testing my nerves. Comments. Commenter 1. This is exactly why CC fraud is so rampant, nothing is ever done about it. Commenter 2. Get her threats in writing then report her anyway. If she tries to fuck with your custody, submit her messages as evidence. Commenter 3. Did you read it? She's done that. He's documented it, taken it to the judge and he's said that she has to comply. She tried to open another card in his name and when another police report was filed she denied access again. The judge should, based on what he said, go for an amendment of the custody agreement because of the fuckery she's unleashing. Stories number 2. Something happened with my 28F husband, 29M. Last night, my husband and I went out for the first time in a long time. I got very drunk together. We were having lots of fun and everything was fine until I told him I wanted to go to the bar to get more shots and I was talking to a group of guys. He then got super weird and ran away from the bar and went outside waiting for an Uber. That's the easiest way to say what happened. We then went home and we got in a huge argument. He called me a whore and said that his 2 children that look exactly like him are probably not even his. I guess I went to push past him because our kids woke up then from him screaming and he pushed me, hurting me, towards the couch. He then made me sit on the couch and proceeded to scream in my face. I got up once again, and he then pushed me on the floor and got in my face screaming at me while I was on the floor. He kicked me out of the house. My mother came, and his mother came. My mother came to pick me up. His mother came to help with the children. He said he's embarrassed because his mother knows that we are having issues because he thinks that I am cheating. He said he will get a paternity test for her 2 kids still this morning. He has not apologized for pushing me or calling me a whore. I told him that if it'll make him more comfortable he can do the paternity test. But at this point I am so heartbroken from the way he was, saying we were getting divorced. That when he gets the paternity test back saying the children are absolutely his, I will serve him divorce papers. Because I just can't. I cannot believe he's saying our children could be someone else's. What would you do? Would you work it out? Stories number 3. Met a random woman at a large corporate function and she confessed. I was recently at a large corporate party with many people I didn't know from different offices around the country. I was making small talk with the wife of someone I didn't know and she started making humorous complaints about her husband. Nothing serious, typical middle-age marriage jokes. We're laughing and says, we've never before and we will probably never meet again, so can I tell you something I need to get off my chest? I say sure and she confesses that she had a years-long affair that ended about 2 years ago. I smile and say that's not uncommon and not so bad. She then gets very serious and says that's not the bad part. He recently died of cancer and she so wanted to see him before he died but she couldn't. Her husband actually knew about the affair, but his wife never did. She was on the verge of tears saying she couldn't even go to the funeral, but she did go to his grave afterwards. She couldn't talk to her husband about it, she couldn't talk to anyone. I wanted to ask her more questions, but she stopped me. She got herself together and left to join her husband. Before the evening ended she talked to me again, with other people around. Big smile on her face saying what a great fun conversation we had. She asked to exchange numbers, which we did. She started texting me 2 days later, giving me a bit more details about the affair, explaining that she really loved the guy and missed him terribly. And then told me that her marriage was miserable and that she believes her husband is really gay. Stories number 4. I'm 28M, starting to fall for my 24F wife and am unsure how to proceed. This is all a very complicated and sad situation. About 4 years ago my wife and partner of 8 years passed away due to complications after the birth, very rare, of our second son. I was deployed at the time, and completely devastated. After flying home I felt that nothing would make me happy again. My sons are great, now 6 and 4, but overwhelming, so I asked a sister of one of my Marine buddies, Cass, to help out. She had been friends with my wife, but not great friends, and she agreed in exchange for a place to stay. At the time, Cass was only 20 years old and in quite a bit of debt in fault of her extremely abusive ex-boyfriend, who she had finally left about 3 months earlier. During the first few weeks of her helping out with the boys, she asked to borrow money to see a doctor due to shaking hands, no insurance. I happily obliged. She was an angel, doing all of the cooking and cleaning and keeping my young family together. It turned out that she had developed some sort of neurological disorder, probably brought on by repeated abuse. At the time it seemed simple. I had good insurance, she needed healthcare, I never thought I'd be able to move on from my wife, and she was afraid of intimacy. I agreed that I would marry her, but keep our platonic relationship. She promised not to burden me with her debt, and we had a prenuptial agreement and all. I know that this is fraud of the government, hence the throwaway, but we were both so damaged and needed somebody, if not intimately. The past 3 years have been about as good as expected, if not better. Cass is great, better than great. She keeps the house spotless, had food ready every night when I get home, and has been working overnights as a baker and almost has her debt paid off. Her condition has improved greatly, also, due to the great medical care she was able to receive. With the boys, she is a saint. She tells them about their mother, shows them pictures, takes the places for fun, and even taught them how to read. Of course the 6-year-old just finished kindergarten, but my 4-year-old is going to be the smartest kid in his class next year. Sometimes the 4-year-old calls her mommy, but she shoos him and reminds him that name is Cass, and that mommy is the angel whose picture is above the fireplace. Once her debt is fully paid off, the kids are in school, and she saves up a bit of money, she is going to go into a nursing program. Our relationship, still platonic, but very caring. I've cried on her shoulders more times than I can count, and she's done the same. One night I was very stressed out, and yelled at her about something pretty inconsequential. She had taken my sons to see Santa without me. She, of course, became quite frightened, but we worked it out and I even offered to pay for her to see a counselor. She didn't. That was 2 years ago, and we have had little fights ever since, but have been able to work through them. She seems to understand me whenever I'm hurt, upset, or angry, and is calming in a way that I can't explain. The problem, Reddit, is that I think I might be falling for her. I've been noticing little things, her scent, her smile, her laugh. The way she smiles with her eyes when she sees me, how much my boys love her. Not to mention that she's gorgeous, hardworking, and one of the strongest people I've ever encountered. A few nights ago I almost kissed her after we had put the boys to bed, and her hugs goodbye have started lasting a little bit longer. The other day she was taking a nap in my bed, she was washing her sheets, and I wanted to join her. Not have sex with her, just lay with her and hold and kiss her. I don't know what to do, or how to even bring this up. It's been 4 years since my wife died. I can only think of a quote from A Song of Fire and Ice books, in which a character says that, when the sun has set, no candle can replace it. Meaning that since his true love has died, nobody could replace him. That's how I used to feel, but there have been days where my thoughts have been occupied with Cass, and I haven't even thought about my wife. I feel bad about it, and I still miss her, but I never thought that I'd be able to move on. I feel guilty and disloyal. At the same time, I want her. Not just sexually or physically, I want to be romantically intimate with her, not just as friends. I don't know how to bring it up. I don't want to scare her or make her uncomfortable. But this is becoming more difficult than I could have ever imagined. I was thinking about asking her to get dinner, just the two of us, and bringing it up. But what if she refuses? How can I gauge her interest? If it means anything, the other day she was having a hard time with the boys, they were restless and being out of hand, so I brought her home some of her favorite flowers. She was extremely giddy and gave me another lasting hug and a quick kiss on the lips. I was taken aback, but she pranced around, finishing dinner and putting the flowers in a vase. What does this mean? TLDR, after my wife died, I married a good friend's sister for healthcare benefits, and now I feel as if I'm falling for her, hard. What should I do? Edit, fuck it. It's been an hour on here and you've convinced me to tell her. I've called her favorite fancy restaurant and made a reservation. Her brother agreed to babysit, and let her/me stay at his place tonight if she isn't into it, feels uncomfortable. She paid off her debt this morning, apparently, just texted me a picture of the check, and next week is our 3-year anniversary, so that is the prelude. I'm going to tell her at dessert. I'm nervous as shit. Notable comments. So you have feelings for the woman you're legally married to, and live with, who takes care of your kids. That sounds like a good thing to me, man. Talk to her and see if she feels the same. JSH 1138. Look, you need to think of it this way. The status quo, it's over. Whatever happens with you and her, you can't keep on as it is with you having those feelings. Equally, she won't want to be stand-in wife forever. She will want to have relationships, etc. They might be with you, they might be with others. It was never going to go on in this marriage of convenience forever. That means there is literally no downside to telling her how you feel. Also, having a new partner does not mean replacing your first wife. It really doesn't. The new person in your life is a fresh thing, it does not threaten how much you loved your wife. You have to trust me on that one. Right now, the best thing is to be honest. It's going to be awkward whatever happens, but you'll need to. So sit her down, ideally when the kids are off somewhere for a night, or you have a babysitter, and say something like, "Look, we need to talk about our situation. You've been more wonderful than I could have imagined with the kids, and you've made my life better in hundreds of ways, but I've got this problem. Which is that I'm finding myself not just thinking of you as a friend anymore. I'll be honest, I find myself falling for you, pretty hard. There are times I have to stop myself from just kissing you. I know this may be a surprise, though I really hope you might feel a little bit the same. Sometimes I think you might, but I can't help second guess myself. If you don't, that's okay. I guess I knew on some level this arrangement couldn't go on forever, and I'll always be more grateful than you can imagine for what you've done for me and the boys, and I don't want to freak you out. I'll respect your feelings about this, but I had to tell you, or something along those lines. Also, update us. Lazy, I think that we both literally did think that this would go on forever. I never thought that I would get over my wife, and she never though she could trust another man again. 2 years ago she told me that she thought she wouldn't even be able to have sex with another man due to the horrific things that her ex put her though. She just wanted to feel safe, not loved, she said. She's told me that I, along with her brother, are the only people she's ever felt safe with. Her father died when she was small and her mother dated idiots/assholes. She has said that she loves my sons. There was one instance where the younger one became very ill, and she stayed up with him at the hospital all night so that he wouldn't be alone when he woke up. I like what you wrote, but just to outline, we need to talk. Tell her how wonderful she and our situation is. Admit that I'm having trouble containing my feelings for her. Tell her that I understand if it would make her uncomfortable. End with that, no matter what she says, I still want her around and that I will respect her wishes. Right? Bang on. I'd add then what you said, that you on some level thought it would go on forever because you didn't think you'd get over your wife, and you're not over her in terms of forgetting, but you are finding there is room in your heart for other people, it more particularly, one specific person. Also make clear if it comes up that you have no expectation as to what being together would mean. You know she has some issues and you respect them, but that, say, when she kissed you on TE lips when you gave her flowers, it made you go all gooey inside, which I guess it did. Also, update us, we love updates, and I will be having my fingers firmly crossed for Thins being a happy ending. Lazy, kiss her for fuck's sake. Update Reddit, sell story to Hollywood. Profit Express line, I won't kiss her unless she wants me to. I'm telling her tonight. She might deny me, that would be quite the Hollywood twist. Tell her. You can love more than one person in your life without it meaning you loved your wife any less, and it is unlikely your wife would have wished lifelong loneliness upon you. It might be a good idea to read some books about being a widower and beginning a new relationship to address your feelings of guilt and disloyalty. Maybe take Cass out to dinner and tell her that you have feelings for her over dessert, so if she doesn't feel the same way you don't have a long awkward meal to chomp through. But from your description, I think she is interested. It's a great situation, she loves your kids, and hasn't gotten sick of you yet. Good luck, come back with an update. Rhonda Piper, update, everything went amazing. Just got home. Love Reddit. Smiley face, will update Tom. Time to go make out with my wife, smiley face. TLDR, she said she liked me too. Notable comments. Dear Diary, OP delivered today. It was a good day. I'm in your mind now. Update 2, last night was hectic as shit at first. Our younger son had eaten, what he calls, a giant fuzzy spider, and Cass wanted to take him to the hospital, even though he was fine. Her brother, we'll call him Joe, told her that he'd take care of it, and basically forced her out of the house to celebrate getting out of debt. She really didn't seem like she wanted to go. At all. I became fucking nervous. So we got to the restaurant pretty early, but luckily they had a table. She ordered wine, which was odd, because she hasn't drank much since she broke up with her ex, but I figured it was a time to celebrate. We made small talk for a while, but it seemed forced, and I knew that I had to tell her soon. So, before the entrees even came, I said that I had something to talk to her about. She didn't smile and told me that she knew. Joe told her, and my goddamn heart almost stopped. That fucker. I hurriedly told her that I was so sorry, I didn't want her to find out that way, I wanted to tell her myself. She shook her head, frowned, and said that it was okay, she just wanted me to be happy and that I deserved it. I told her that I didn't want to stress her out or make her uncomfortable, but I just needed to tell her, and see how she felt, and that it was completely up to her. She gave me a look and said that it actually was up to me, and just to do what made me happy. She said that she was probably going to move out after her program ended, and promised to stay out of the way until then. It was then that I realized something was a bit off, and asked WTF Joe had told her. She said that he told her I wanted to take her out to dinner to tell her that I had started developing feelings for a girl, and wanted to ask Cass if it would be okay if I asked this girl out. It was then I realized that Joe had set me up for the most climactic pickup line ever to exist. Our entrees came, I had shrimp and pesto gnocchi, and she had crab legs for you detail lovers, and I explained that, yes, I had started developing feelings for a girl, I just didn't want it to mess up what we had. She said that it wouldn't mess anything up, she still loved the boys and would take care of them and the house. I continued to then explain that I wasn't going to ask the girl on a date, though, and she asked, incredulously, why not? Then I dropped my smoothest line I've ever dropped. Because I'm already on a date with her, right? Thanks Joe, because he must know about your planned movie and really wanted that line. She gave me this look that she gives my sons when they tell her things like, I'm going to the mall by myself, or, I have a girlfriend named Tammy. Then she looked away, smiled and shook her head and asked, really? I nodded and told her that I cared about her more than anybody else alive, other than my sons, that I loved our family, and that I had fallen in love with her. She then took a drink of wine, rolled her eyes, and said, about fucking time, Alex. And I'll never forget what happened next. Maybe it was a faux pas, but I leaned across the table and kissed her, spilling her wine. But neither of us cared and we kissed for about a minute, before she told me to get off her before her crab legs got cold. This was joking, but not. You'd have to know her. After leaving the restaurant we got ice cream and sat around and kissed some more, before heading home. Joe was sitting on our couch watching one of those VH1 dating shows with a shit-eating grin on his face, and Cass ran in, screaming at him that he ruined everything and that she was going to have to move in with Mom now. We let him believe it for about 5 seconds before bursting into laughter. He shook my hand and told me that the boys were sleeping and left. I picked Cass up and kissed her and carried her to my room where we made out for like 2 hours and snuggled the shit out of each other. She isn't ready for anything else, but emphasized yet. I'll give her all the time in the world. At one point the youngest son came in because of a nightmare, and brought his dog, a golden retriever puppy, and claimed that the doggy was scared, so we, of course, let him in. I woke up early to make everyone breakfast, and of course, deliver, and am about to go and kiss my wife goodbye, and ask my boss for the second part of the day off so that I can spend more time with her while the boys are at school, preschool. I'm really sorry I haven't replied to everything, I was a little busy, but that you all for the support. TLDR, her brother is a little fucker, all went well in the end, we cuddled the shit out of each other all night. Update 2, my wife and I are doing fine, but I'm still unsure how to provide proof. I've lost the receipt for the restaurant and didn't pay with a card, and won't post pictures for obvious reasons, such as years of defrauding the government. But I will deliver and find a way. I promise, as a man of my word. Haven't I always delivered so far? And to those of you who are talking about a second wedding ceremony, we just kissed for the first time 2 nights ago. Overly attached Reddit. Finally, thank you to whoever gave me gold, I spent about $25 last night buying Joe beers. But next time, please use that money for real good. Take a vet to lunch, learn CPR, I don't know. But again, many thanks to you. I promise I'll update again in the future, but don't be angry if it isn't very often. I've been a little busier than normal. Cheers. TLDR, everything is going great, we'll update sometimes, trying to figure out proof, thanks for the gold. Update 3, apparently I can't post this as an update because of some rule, it's fine. I'd advise anybody to look through my past submissions, I don't think I can post them on here, if you are interested in what happened about a month ago. But apparently this is a different issue. Things were going very well except I started developing feelings for her. I was afraid of scaring her, or making her feel unsafe, but Reddit convinced me to take the plunge. Now I'm happily dating my wife. Hey everybody. I hope your workday is going well. My day has been crazy. Everything has been going wonderfully lately, though. It was somewhat strange at first explaining it to our friends and family, but most of them had already caught on, including my sons, who act as if nothing has changed. I'm pretty sure the little fuckers knew the entire time. Anyways, last night I came home and Cass was out of it. Dinner was burnt, which is no big deal, I can't really cook well or anything, but it's out of character, and she was drinking, lightly, only 1 or 2 glasses of wine. I asked her what was wrong, obviously I was concerned, and she told me that her ex-boyfriend, shithead, 30, male, got parole last week. I was flabbergasted, since she should have been able to testify at his parole hearing, I believe. Apparently the crime that he was incarcerated for was unrelated to the abuse, which I had always assumed was the reason, but Cass had been, 1, assured it would put him away for a decade at least, and, 2, had been far too afraid to testify against him or press charges. Apparently he'd been arrested for this felony, and when he was being held, he asked her to post bail, but instead she asked my first wife for help moving out and moving on. I don't know what to do. I don't think that we have any legal ways to put him back into prison. She knows that she should have gone to the police and is guilt-ridden and upset about it now. I know that she's going to be safe, because if he tries to even contact her, I'll take a legal recourse of action to make sure that he doesn't so much as touch her. I've taken off work today, but promise that even when I go back, I'll have my buddies stopping by throughout the day, but I don't know how to make her feel safe. I've contacted my lawyer about filing a restraining order, and he said it shouldn't be too hard, but she's a mess. I just don't know how to make her believe that I doubt this piece of shit will come around, but I know what I'm going to do if he tries. TLDR, her ex got out of prison, we weren't notified, she's scared out of her mind. Commenters urge him to get a protective order. Some also say not to do anything big unless she is asking for help. Update 4. Hey Reddit. I first of all would like to apologize for not keeping you guys updated. I've honestly just been pretty occupied with life lately, and last night I had trouble sleeping. I was just browsing the internet when an article came up about Reddit and I thought, I wonder how those nice people are doing. Then I signed in and realized that a lot of you really care about how my life is going with Cass. The answer is pretty well now. Things got tough for a while when her ex was released from prison last year, though. She was so afraid that he'd contact her, until he did. I remember that night like it was 5 minutes ago. Somebody rang our doorbell and the oldest son answered. He asked for Cass. She told the boys to go upstairs and gave me a look and I knew. But she didn't look scared. The bastard apologized and begged for forgiveness and asked for a second chance. She was so brave. I wanted to kill him, but she told him no and asked him to leave. He did, and he tried to contact her a few more times before we got an order of protection against him. Last I heard he moved upstate to live with his dad, or something. Around this time her brother Joe also got into a really bad car accident and ended up having to move in with us for a while. He's a great guy and one of my best friends, so we didn't mind, but it was a stressful time. About 7 or 8 months ago we finally, consummated our marriage, I guess you can say. The boys are doing great and are really happy. Cass got a pretty good job, although I think she's working too much overtime, and loves it. We're expecting our first child in February and couldn't be more excited. You could say that life is pretty good. I'll be around for another few hours if you guys have any questions. TLDR, things were bad. Now they're pretty damn awesome. Update 4. It's a girl. Technically she was born early March, but I didn't want to make the title, it was a girl. Sorry for not updating, it was a pretty rough pregnancy, and Cass has put her foot down about wanting more. I guess 3 is enough, but everything turned out great. Little Therese was 21 inch and 9 pounds at birth, and as bald as I am. She's way easier than the boys were, she hardly ever cries and is the most photogenic baby ever. Our youngest son is completely smitten, and always tries to help. It's less cute than you think. Joe is also doing okay. His back is still bothering him, but he's dating a girl who actually went to my high school, 2 years younger than me, though. He's pretty happy with her, and we're all very happy for him. Other than new fatherhood, not much to update. I'm home watching the baby today while Cass it out, so I should be around for a while. TLDR, it's a girl. Stories number 5. Aita for leaving a party because my date refused to get me water. I had been seeing someone I met through mutual friends. We'd had good times one-on-one, and when he invited me to events with his friends, I'd contribute to the group dynamic by never showing up empty-handed and offering to grab drinks for others. Fast forward to a holiday-themed party with his friends. My date and I planned to meet there and hang out afterward. I spent the day cleaning my condo and preparing mulled wine to bring. During the party, people were getting drinks for one another, including me when I served the wine. At one point, I was sitting on the couch, blocked in by only my date on one side and many others on my other side. I was tired and didn't feel like tightly squeezing past people I didn't know, so I asked my date if he could grab me a glass of water. He shook his head, and after I said, he said, no. I was just up, and you could have asked before I sat down again. I was taken aback because I view small gestures, like grabbing water, as basic acts of care for friends, but especially for someone you're dating. That moment, combined with a long day of preparation, left me feeling drained. Since the party was winding down and I didn't have the energy to engage further, I said my goodbyes and called a ride. My date offered to walk me out and said he felt hurt that I was leaving. I explained I needed to recharge but that he was welcome to come over after the party. As we walked out, I jokingly mentioned how him not getting me water surprised me. He replied, "Wow, that really upset you, huh? I have to be guarded about these things, you know." Later, we texted, but he seemed more upset about me leaving than interested in listening to why I felt drained. When I tried to call, he didn't answer. His texts were curt, and I eventually told him I'd let him decompress. 2 days later, I called to discuss what happened. He said he'd call that evening but didn't reach out until 3 days later, saying, "I'm not dodging you, I've just been busy." At that point, I was over it, especially since he never acknowledged the misunderstanding or my attempts to resolve it. A month later, we finally had a conversation. He explained that getting me water felt subservient and was something I had to earn through time and being in the trenches with him. He also said I didn't understand how busy his life was. For context, I work multiple jobs. I calmly explained that grabbing water for someone isn't about being subservient but a small act of kindness. After reflecting, I feel his responses and handling of the situation were disrespectful and indicative of bigger issues. So, is there an asshole here? I appreciate the perspective. Stories number 6. My fiancé gambled away $20K 10 months before our wedding. My fiancé, 29M, just told me, 29F, this past weekend that over the course of a year, has gambled away about $20K. And of that $20K, $4K was just given to us by his dad for our wedding, which is in 10 months. And this isn't the first time, this is the second. We've been together for about 4 years now, and about 2 years ago, he lost $10K from gambling. This is, or was, it anymore, the healthiest relationship I've ever had. I've never had to worry about him cheating or his loyalty, we talk things out in a healthy way, we are completely in love with each other. He's my best friend. When he told me, I obviously broke down crying and gave him a little piece of my mind for lying to me for a year. That's what I find the hardest to get over. Well, either that or the gambling away our wedding money. I'm trying to look at the debt like college debt, everyone has it. But our wedding money? He says he didn't tell me for so long BC he thought he could win it all back. And then when he took the $4K from his dad, he told me a couple days later. I told him he has to make an appointment with a financial advisor ASAP to figure out WTF to do. We were supposed to get married this year and buy a house next year. But his credit is going to be ruined and I am afraid of being linked to him financially and martially. Obviously we can't share a bank account. I'm feeling very lost, confused, hurt and betrayed. How do I move forward? How can I trust him? Can we rebuild? I love him so much and I want to forgive him. He said he knows this is his last chance but this time if he fucks up again it's not just a breakup, it's a divorce. I can't talk to anyone about this and I'm feeling really isolated. I'll take all the advice, thanks. Stories number 7. My boyfriend, 24M, and me, 22F, have been together for almost 2 years now. Aside from some small bumps in the road, we have been in a very good place throughout the whole relationship. However, last night things escalated, over, in my opinion, something super dumb. But he thinks differently of that, and now stopped talking to me. It started when we were on bed, he was gaming and I was on my laptop looking to order a new perfume. Since I stopped my job, to focus on studying, I don't have as much income, so I decided to not get the expensive perfume I usually go for, Miss Dior. I thought it'd be better to find a body spray with a resembling scent. As he was looking over my shoulder he asked me what I was doing, so I explained. He then reacted saying I wore Miss Dior in our first period of dating and it is, my smell, and how it was one of the things that attracted him to me. I must admit this made me a bit annoyed, because I'd rather get that perfume too, but it's just not responsible to do so right now. He started rambling on how I care more about saving money than I care about him. I said that's not true, but then he kept saying his hypersensitivity issues can't deal with adjusting to a new scent. I said I'd find a scent similar to my old one, but he wasn't content. At this point he said he'd have to break up with me if I would go for another scent. I found this hilarious and thought he surely must be joking so I laughed, which made him go silent. I let him be, because I was really annoyed, and we went to sleep. Now he left early morning and doesn't respond to my texts or calls. I have no idea what to do and I'm starting to doubt how I handled the situation. Any advice? Update. Wow, first of all, thanks everyone who gave me advice, and some tough love. I did not expect so many of you to help me and definitely teared up at some of your replies. After I posted this I was a bit of a mess, but after hours of ignoring me he texted me late in the evening and asked me to meet up, because he does not want us to be in a bad place. I really wanted to talk to him, at least to clear things up, so I went to his place. When I got there he acted a bit disappointed still, but he did say he didn't want us to fight. I felt the same, but also took your advice to heart, the idea of letting him buy a bottle. However, for some context, I do think he might be on the spectrum, no diagnose but his dad is too, and it'd make sense, so I did want to show him I care and take his hypersensitivity seriously. Therefore I decided to suggest we pay half/half for a new Miss Dior and then until that one would be finished, I'll make sure to do research to find a really good dupe. He was not as convinced, told me it wasn't my birthday anytime soon. I explained that I understood but we'd have to both compromise. Well, to quote his literal words, if you're such a feminist, you should be so financially too. This got me fuming. I had no words, so this time I left. As per your advice, in the replies, I did some thinking about the rest of our relationship. I realized other things in our relationship that at the time didn't sit quite right with me, were situations of him being controlling and self-concerned, situations I always considered as little things he'd mean differently or would learn from. I was wrong. You were right. I asked him to meet up today and I dumped his ass. I feel terrible right now, but I know I'm better off. So, anyone advice for a cheap, nice body spray? Stories number 8. My 37F, BF, 40, uninvited me to Christmas but wants me to leave expensive gifts. If you look at my post history, I escaped a violent man a while ago and got back with an ex who was cold but at least not violent, but is lazy and passive and there was too much family drama. He has 2 kids, 8 and 10. Now I am back in the drama. He also never told me he loved me, but that is beside the point. His kid's mom has always been awful to me, and he never stands up for me. We broke up when she screamed at me when I came with him to pick up the kids, threw me out, and he didn't say anything. It was literally my first interaction with this woman. There is no history that I know of, I don't recall ever meeting this woman, 39F, before I dated Phil, and to my knowledge, I have no friends in common with her except my hairstylist, who is a nice woman. She honestly freaked me out, coming at me screaming at our first meeting. They have been divorced 7 years, so it's not like it's new. Anyway, we are back together and initially I was invited to his Christmas dinner. I grew up in a cult and have no family since my disabled mother died. He knows this. Now, BM is insisting that he cannot see the kids at all if I am there, so he asked that I find something else to do on Christmas. While we only recently got back together, we were together for a year before that, but again, no, I love you, and I felt more like a friend to him. Sometimes I wondered if he's gay and I was his beard. He doesn't drive, so asked me to take him to the mall to shop for gifts. I bought expensive gifts for his kids. He wants me to take him grocery shopping and leave the gifts for his kids, and leave my dog so they can play with her, but then go away until they are gone. I have a friend who kindly invited me so we are going to hang out, and he says I am being dramatic and selfish when I tell him I am just going to get my money back for the gifts. Should I return the gifts or not? Update. Thank you all for the kind comments, and really, the unkind comments were helpful by showing me what kindness looks like. To answer people's questions, I have only been free of my controlling, narcissistic mother for 4 years, even though we escaped the cult 10 years ago. So I am really still learning to cope. I am in therapy, but my therapist's focus has been to help me build and keep relationships with people, so she tends to explain how to see things from the other person's perspective. Her suggestion was that I can leave, but also maybe have empathy for Phil's lack of EQ and grow a thicker skin. I might need a better therapist. I was raised to believe I am worthless and don't deserve kindness. It has taken 3 years of therapy just to have the confidence to make friends and date at all. I told Phil that I am taking the gifts back and he has been begging me to give him another chance. I am working on the strength to walk away. Relevant comments. You should get a new place now to get away from Phil. Reply, I have my own apartment, so no worries there. Commenter 1. Bizarre that you are with someone who told you he's never loved you and you consider that beside the point. Actually, that is very much the driver of your whole dynamic. TBH, I couldn't read beyond that. You need to aim higher in relationships than simply not violent. Exes are exes for a reason. Reply, well I don't want to be needy and wanted to be understanding that maybe it's hard for him to say. Who has the primary custody of the BF's kids? Reply, she, editor's note, the mother, has full custody because he was involuntarily hospitalized during a manic episode a few years ago, before we met. She painted him as unfit since he's bipolar and he is afraid to go to court. He also only pays child support erratically. That is not an excuse for doing this to me, I am trying to tell myself. Update 1. I was shocked at how everyone said BF is wrong. I really thought most people would be Team BM and tell me I'm awful for not cooperating with being asked to leave expensive gifts and my dog for my BF's kids on Christmas, but leave the house, as I am not allowed. Because that is what most of my friends, okay, I have 5 friends, told me. They told me relationships are work and compromise and that the BM and babies must always come first, even suggested I help cook dinner for them. Most of my friends are actually my late mom's friends, women over 60. I started therapy when I was cripplingly shy, and to defend my therapist, it only thanks to her that I stopped sitting alone in my house totally isolated and learning to connect with other people. While I appreciate the suggestion to be alone for a while, I have been super isolated most of my life and dating again was actually huge progress for me that we worked on for months. I told my therapist that Phil crossed a line and I don't want to save relationships with him or my friends, I want to improve my self-esteem. Her emphasis has always been on avoiding isolation at all costs, and learning to endure other people's imperfections. She agreed that this Christmas incident was really bad. I am still processing all this. I am surrounded by people who encourage me to be a doormat and I am still shocked at what others thought. I really thought Phil and BM were right and 48 hours is not enough time to process that maybe my whole worldview is totally messed up. I went to my friend Mary's house and realized that she's maybe my only real friend. She didn't judge, told me Phil is nuts, and we had a great time with her family. I left my dog with a neighbor since her oldest is nonverbal and can be unsafe with animals. I sent him a Venmo request for the money I spent on gas and gifts and he paid it. Phil threw BM out at 2 p.m. and begged me to come home. I got my dog back from the neighbor, took out the cheapest gifts and he made his kids thank me and play with the presents, which felt very awkward as he tried to beg them to engage with me while they were on their phones. We hung out with his kids though for an hour. BM came back and refused to get out of her car. Phil is now telling me he loves me, wants to marry me, etc. I don't know what to do. I have been reading non-stop on narcissistic abuse these past few days. I am seeing that Phil is just like my mom, and that this is maybe what she did, hoovering. But again, I am fighting to stop being totally isolated, which I did for years after leaving the cult. I had no friends, never dated. It's laughable the number of people who accused me of desperately needing a man. Phil is my first boyfriend, and we met when I was a 31-year-old virgin with no friends. So, yes, being alone is grand, but I have been alone all my life and fought hard to stop wanting to be alone. Learning to talk to people outside of work topics, have social skills, etc. has been a huge battle. I am not autistic but I read that way because after age 7, I was the only kid left in our cult/commune and I have no social skills and prefer to be alone to an unhealthy degree. I don't know what to do. Maybe Phil grew a spine. Maybe it's hoovering. I am standing up to him though and looking at finding new friends and hanging more with Mary, who said I am always welcome at her house. Relevant comments. Commenter, your therapist is approaching this from an angle of a job not your full health. They don't want you to commit suicide and an isolated individual does it more successfully. The therapist probably also thinks you don't know enough about people to believe they're as bad as you are saying they are. You are friends with older women who are sexist and adhere to traditional views and want you to feel trapped like they did. Except for your one friend they are okay with you being treated like a pet. Probably how they were. He's love bombing you look up love bombing. No company is better than bad company. You need to get away from this man first, then you need to slowly get better and new friends and ghost these fake ones. Reply, yes, she does tend to defend people until they get really awful, then finally realize I had a point. Commenter, the only reason a therapist would do that is, 1. Incompetent. 2. She doesn't trust you or thinks you're an idiot. 3. She is worried you'll commit suicide and make her lose her job. All are reasons for her to get the boot. She's reached the limits of what she can help you with. Reply, some of it might be that I need to be more specific with issues I bring to therapy. Like I was telling her for months about one of my friends belittling me in front of other people, and she kept telling me, just smile, don't let other people get to you, just let it roll off your back. Then I quoted, verbatim, this friend's latest salvo. She came to my tiny party, told me she had a great time, then, next time, in front of neighbors, brought up the party and said loudly, next time, let me help plan it, so we can have some decent food. My therapist then asked me why I'm friends with her. I felt like saying, because you have been telling me to be more tolerant of her and to stay friends with her. Update 2. If you recall, my BF threw me out on Christmas because his baby mama would not let him see his kids unless he uninvited me to Christmas. He expected me to leave behind the expensive gifts I bought his kids, take him grocery shopping, he can't drive for medical reasons, and leave my dog with them to play with. I have a history of social isolation, abuse, and have one friend my own age, so I had no one to tell me how bad this was, and no other social outlets. Phil arranged a small Christmas gift opening for me, him and his kids. He finally told me he loved me and wants to marry me. He then offered to let me move in with him, but then hit me up to buy a sofa. A few days later, I was out of gas. He got out to pump the gas, but asked for my credit card. He would not even chip in for gas, even though I take him everywhere. A couple of weeks ago, I noticed that I am out of kitchen knives. Like, my utensil drawer was just emptier and emptier. I have a cleaning lady, and figured maybe she put them someplace weird, because she has spaced out. She's sweet but more ADHD than I am, which is a lot. They were in Phil's utensil drawer. He has been stealing utensils from me. For some reason, this was it. Today, I blocked him. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, sorry he is just using you as a chauffeur and a bank. Reply, and apparently dollar store. Commenter 2, probably for the best, otherwise he'll just keep trying to tell you what he thinks you want to hear to save himself from losing what he sees as a resource. Reply, what I don't get is, why risk all I was giving him over stealing cheap stuff? I mean, either he thinks I'm so dumb he can explain it away, or he's nuts. The value of the transportation I was giving him was way more than a few utensils. Commenter 3, I hope you got your knives back, otherwise go get some new ones. What a scumbag. At least you found out before you moved in and before you made a huge mistake and actually married the guy. There are much better fish in the sea, just be careful and take it slow. Reply, they are worth $10. That is what gets me. He stole $10 worth of stuff. I am now paranoid that he has stolen something more valuable. I went through my jewelry and it seems to all be there. But now I'm stressed, did he steal my credit card info? Stories number 9. My husband is turning into a bum and I don't know what to do. Context, we are in our very late 30s. Married 11 years. He is 100% disability with the VA, PTSD. One child and she just turned 6. Separate finances. He worked out of town, so on to the juice. I never wanted children and when we first got together neither did he. That was until he saw me playing with all my nieces and nephews at a family gathering. I have 14 total now, back then only 6. I am one of 9 siblings, so family functions are huge. From that point forward he knew he wanted kids with me. I ended up pregnant. I chose to keep her and got a ligation and ablation a few months after having her. He had expressed his feelings, being hurt that I would do such a thing, and we started counseling. Working out of town like he did, meant there wasn't a lot of time for us. Just weekends the entire time our daughter has been alive. When he'd get home, there were always upset feelings towards me. He prefers the house to be more clean than it usually is. So I started deep cleaning a room a week. It's not like the house is trashed. It's just not home and garden ready. It was just hard to do all the things and keep a spotless house, so naturally speaking, some of the household chores take a back seat. Since our daughter was born, I've been taking her to work 40+ hours a week. I work for a property management and realtor office and have for the last 20 years. I run most things in the office, and I occasionally clean rentals for some extra cash. It has been so nice bringing her to work. She tells my bosses that she loves them and they tell her they love her too. They help me teach her things, and they watch her when I have appointments. Let alone the money I'm saving on daycare. I am truly thankful and grateful for my bosses. So my husband just quit his job at the beginning of this year. It has been 20 days so far, and this is ridiculous. Here are the things he has done since being home. He does make sure to wash dishes. He has made dinner 2 times. He has watched our child so I could have a child-free day at work 4 times. And he has played a lot of video game. Yes, that's right, game, as in the singular. Call of Duty. He'll play all day. He'll play most of the night. He gets about 4 hours of sleep and then repeats. The only time he's not playing is his appointments, and when I ask if we can watch something together. I asked our daughter what she does with Dad during the days he watches her, and her response made my blood boil. Dad lets me watch YouTube and play with Legos all day. The man hadn't even given her lunch. My child is damn smart, of course. She just went and made a PB&J and ate the fruit out of our fruit bowl when she was hungry. He's not doing anything he should be doing. Not helping with her math and ABCs to prepare her for school this year. Not taking her on an outing. Not even making her eat something. He's not doing any of the cleaning that bugged him while he was working. He's not doing even the command jobs like taking the car in for an oil change while I'm at work. He's not interested in me and my hobbies or job. He is literally turning into a bum. The best I got is that he doesn't drink or do drugs. He's not physically abusive, or rather abusive on any level. He's just not a good dad or partner either. Counseling isn't helping and I want to just leave, but I've been here so long already. If I do leave, I'm the one that has to start all over again. We live in his house he bought before we were married. I drive his vehicle he bought for me but never put my name on. I do not have a savings as I pay the utilities, all the bills for our daughter, all groceries, and a couple of subscription services. What do I do to get him to do something, or rather anything, other than COD? Edit. He is in therapy 3 times a week. One time of the week is couples counseling. Edit 2, okay, so dang. I was expecting 1 or 2 comments telling me to stay in my lane or the hard Reddit, divorce, a lot of people get and suggest. So, there are a couple of updates. I left my phone at the office, and my bosses kept hearing it go off. They have read everything. I don't lock my phone. I have no need, and it is very common for them to use my phone, theirs, for all sorts of things. They agree with a lot of different comments and have made it point blank clear that if I need, I have a place free of charge for both my daughter and I till they and I can get us into a house of our own. I just would have never asked for help, or I guess such a deep discount anyway, as I feel like they've helped so much already. I'm going to look for a different therapist for my husband and our couples counselor. I'm going to ask about cognitive behavioral therapy. This is not something any of our therapists have brought up. I am in therapy, and I do like my therapist. I know she's a couple years away from retirement, so I am also going to look and ask for a referral to replace her. She is always saying I need to be more assertive in my communication and echoes some of what y'all have said. I deeply appreciate the veterans and spouses of veterans commenting. I actually didn't know I wasn't completely alone in this, and I appreciate the kind messages of your personal journeys. It has given me a way better insight than I have had. I am going to talk over a schedule with him and fill out a shared Google Calendar that will alert him to things that need to be done. I will also ask him to add things planned specifically for just us. I love your schedule. I'm not going to talk about it tonight, but I did ask when I got home if there was a good time to talk. We have scheduled, and I'm going to talk over your schedule. Well, kind of, I'm going to tweak a little and see what he can start now and what we can add going forward. I don't know that the outings will happen immediately, or anytime relatively soon. But I do have ideas to plug into the things he might be opposed to. I am still open to suggestions, and I only described him as a bum as I'm at a loss for words. A better description is in a rut. Not becoming a bum but is in a rut. Update, my husband is turning into a bum. Welp, I thought I'd be able to update y'all with something nice and joyful. Like in couples counseling we talked over everything and magically he has snapped out if it. Or even perhaps, I found him better treatment and he's open to trying it. But this is not that post. Today, I and my daughter went to my mom's for a family hangout. We usually do these once a month on a Sunday that everyone isn't working and usually we stay through dinner. Everyone was pleased to see me and my daughter but were very confused as to why my husband wasn't joining. I had asked him and he said he wanted to stay home. This is a very normal response as of lately. I had no problems with it. I asked if he wanted me to bring him a plate of dinner. He said no. Okay, no problem. I thought he was just going to play more COD. Well, I forgot my phone at home. It only became important when I needed it to show my sister and her husband a house I saved for them to look at. It just hit the market yesterday at a killer deal and they're looking, I couldn't remember the address. The 3 of us took off and went back to my house to pick it up. They came because they thought it would be nice to say hello to my husband but also maybe pressure him to come hang out. There was a car I've never seen parked on the street in front of my husband's house. We walked into the house but my husband was not in front of the TV. I figured he was in the bathroom. I found my phone on the counter and turned to leave. I froze. That was a moan. And those aren't my shoes. Before I could even understand what was happening, my BL had my husband by his neck. My sister was screaming obscenities at some woman while throwing clothes at her. It was a lot. I asked my husband what was going on. He had no reply other than to shrug. My BL let go. My husband pulled on some pants. My BL gave me my husband's phone from the nightstand. Never once have I gone through my husband's phone. I didn't even know the password. My BL forced my husband to give me the password. My husband has been having an affair for the better part of 4 years. I couldn't and still can't understand. I sent myself screenshots so I have proof. I'm at mom's now. We are going to stay with one of my siblings for a day or 2. When I get back to the office I'm finding a new place to live. I am so heartbroken. I thought I was the problem and my vet husband needed help. Clearly he does need help but he's going to have to find it without me. I'm pretty sure this will be the last update as I'm so depressed right now. I can't stop crying. My daughter has no clue and is happily playing in the backyard with her cousins. How do I tell her what's going to happen now? How do I uproot her from her life and make her have a different one? Where do I go with my horses? How do I afford housing long term? And shit. Now I do have to talk with my bosses and ask for help. Is he going to fight me over custody? How do I afford a lawyer? Do I need a lawyer? Can I just walk away? Do I have to split custody? Is he going to be a huge dick over things? Did he actually love me? Does he love this woman more than me? Was this what he was doing while her daughter was fighting for her life? Am I going to be okay? So many questions and not really any good answers. More or less just writing this to vent. If anyone knows of a good low-cost divorce lawyer close to Minneapolis, let me know. Stories number 10. 18-year-old daughter can't stay safe online. Really not sure how to handle this. My 18-year-old daughter, ADHD and ASD, is making terrible decisions online. Over the weekend she told us she had met a boy, 19, through a friend and wanted to meet up with him. We reminded her that she was an adult and that as long as she was being safe, letting someone know where she was etc., then that was fine. However, the way she was acting seemed strange, so we asked a few more questions and the real story was very different. She'd actually met this boy through an app, again nothing wrong with this, and had been talking to him for 2 weeks. During this time she'd shared her full name, DOB, high school, suburb, place of work and shift times, the bus stop she uses to travel to and from work, her friends' names and photos. Details about her siblings including personal stuff and numerous photos. He has shared a handful of photos, all of which don't show his full face or any identifiable features, very basic info about his school, job and family. He jokingly mentions in messages about kidnapping her and says she's shared too much information about herself with him. He'd also randomly mentioned he owns a gun and asked if he could bring a fake gun to their meetup, which she agreed to. He has also sent her $50 and bought her a gift. She has also completely made up situations about her dad and I which she has shared with this boy, such as we're really mean to her and we don't let her go out, we don't support her financially etc. etc. That we've just come back from a long holiday and we've barely spoken to her except to order her around, none of which is remotely true and we haven't even been on holiday. She cannot see that the situation isn't safe and thinks that we're overreacting, but we are really worried about how to keep her safe online. This isn't the first time she's done this, as she met up with a random stranger from a chat room when she was 15. She's 18, so we can't stop her having access to the internet, but she isn't learning how to keep herself safe. Stories number 11. Aita, for refusing to drop charges in exchange for saving my family. I, 33M, met my wife, 33F, in college. It was a long-term physical relationship that turned serious at the end of our senior year. After graduation, I didn't have plans, so I decided to move to her hometown, major southern city. I didn't know anybody, so we were together 24/7 and moved in together within a year. During this time, I met her family a few times. She had a huge extended family where her mom, Sharon, was the matriarch. Her dad died in a workplace accident, and her mom got a lot of money. She was smart and invested and is doing well. All of Sharon's sibling and nieces/nephews look to her for advice on all major life decisions. She's paid for school, weddings, and helped start businesses. My wife has 2 brothers who I always got along with. We would hang out independent of my wife a few times a year. We got married after 3 years, and when my son was born Sharon bought us a house 3 blocks from hers. We had lived in a downtown loft-style apartment and this was honestly a relief. But with the house came Sharon constantly being in my life. Coming in the house unannounced, unsolicited advice, and snide remarks at my expense. Eventually, 18 months later, we had a blow-up fight and I moved my family across town to an apartment. My wife was pissed and our relationship has deteriorated. Sharon hates me and has turned most of their family against me. I didn't see or go to any of her family events for over a year. My wife still saw her family, but because I wasn't invited and they were over 30 minutes away, it was much less. Sharon went from seeing her grandson almost every day to once a month. So her hate for me went through the roof. The incident. My wife had to work and I was asked to take my son to his cousin's birthday party. The party was at Sharon's house and if it wasn't my son's first cousin, 6 months apart, I would have said no. It was tense the moment I walked in the house. Father of birthday boy, brother-in-law, greeted me but no one else spoke to me. I didn't mind and sat in the corner on my phone. This apparently pissed off Sharon because I was being rude. An argument ensues and I announce I'm leaving with my son. Sharon said, "You can go, but my grandbaby is staying." At this point I lost my cool and started cursing her out. I woke up on the front lawn. Apparently my 2 brother-in-laws beat the shit out of me in front of my kid. 2 of her cousins were helping me up and told me just to leave. I immediately called the police and said I was assaulted and my child was kidnapped. Police came and both brothers were arrested. Sharon lost her shit on the police and my wife drove up as her mother was being arrested for refusing to release my son. Her mom was eventually released but her brothers were arraigned on assault charges. The father of the birthday had an assault charge from college, so he is facing some serious consequences. My wife is mad at everyone but asked me drop charges. I not only refused but got retraining orders for all three of them. Her mother isn't allowed to be near our kid and her brothers have court dates early next year. Last month she moved out the house. We are now headed for divorce. Yesterday she came with one last offer, for us to move cities and start over. But only if I dropped the charges on her brothers and removed the restraining order on her mom. I told her I would think about it, but I think I would rather get divorced. I honestly want to keep my family but I don't believe she'll ever abandon her family for me. If I drop charges now, I doubt I can bring them back later. Aita for not trying to save my family. Edit. This blew up overnight. My wife's cousin DM'd me because she found it. She was there that day and told me to add some more context because her family is getting railed in the comments. She's right, so here are a few more things. I don't think anyone is evil in this situation. Everyone loves Sharon and her advice, except me. She's not a mean person, but we are polar opposites in many ways. My wife is the baby and only girl, so I'm sure that has a lot to do with our conflict. Sharon losing her shit on the police was uncharacteristic, and even I was surprised. My wife is a great mom and partner, but her inability to be independent of her mom's influence is our issue. She is mad at her brothers and isn't talking to either. She's also mad at her mom for starting the argument and refusing to release our son. She's just trying to find a middle ground that I genuinely think she hopes a fresh start can save our marriage. Until we moved into that house, I would say our relationship was good. As far as her brothers and the assault. I remember the first hit, but I was dazed immediately. The last thing I remember was flailing like a child while getting hit a few more times. What I don't remember is my kids screaming to stop hitting my daddy, and them picking me up and dropping me on the lawn like trash. I have to acknowledge that my pride hurt more than my bruises. I genuinely liked both her brothers and to be fair, fuck you, and, bitch, came out of my mouth when I cursed out Sharon. I'm not 100% innocent. This is the South, so the police even said, what did you expect to happen? I don't know if I stopped pursuing this it would continue or not. Relevant comments. When brought up the state presses charges not the victim. I just want to comment on this because it keeps coming up. You are 100% right. In the initial confrontation, the cops asked if I wanted them arrested, and I said yes. I was more bruised than bloody, and they were willing to let it go as a family dispute. That's where the, what did you expect to happen, conversation came from. I'm not pressing charges per se, but I'm not letting it go. I've done 2 interviews with police and have been fully cooperating. If I stopped, they might drop the charges because they seemed more annoyed than helpful. I doubt the younger brother will get more than a slap on the wrist. My wife's oldest brother, with a prior, is in a lot more trouble. He's the one everyone is worried about. Also Sharon never went to jail. When my wife arrived, Sharon was being escorted to a car. My wife and her 2 uncles got Sharon to calm down, and they let her go. She wasn't being violent but was cursing and blocking them from entering the house. The only thing positive about the arrest, and Sharon's almost arrest, was it made getting a restraining order way easier. But even that took a month. Also I had never talked to a lawyer, for any reason, or had any trouble with police. I honestly don't know how any of this works. I just found out the difference between parole and probation a few weeks ago. OOP on Sharon, the mother. Commenter. Sharon is not a good mother. Her habit of buying everything for everyone is robbing her grown children of having their own achievements, which builds character, mental toughness, maturity, and pride in themselves. A better parent would have matched their savings for down payments. Obviously there was a price to be paid for her investments in their lives. She is able to make major decisions in their lives. She is able to walk right in like she owns the place, because she does. It sounds like she is an overbearing, iron-fisted suffocating presence in their lives. Reply. I keep feeling like I'm defending this woman, and trust me, I'm not. But she started flipping houses in the 90s before it was a thing. She always kept her job as a nurse and kept investing in new properties. She helped both her brothers start their own construction business, and 5 nieces/nephews now work in real estate. Her 2 smartest moves were, she was an early iPod user from her time as a nurse and invested heavy in Apple stock in 2002. 2. She pulled out of big real estate investments in 2006, a little early, and sat on her money until 2010. Then she bought up a ton of property. The woman is smart and accomplished. So everyone sees her as this messiah of wisdom. So when she deemed me an asshole for not wanting her in my house constantly and then a bigger asshole for moving my family across town, everyone fell in line. If Sharon thinks he is bad, he must be bad. Update. Hello, let me start by saying thank you to the supporters and fuck you to the assholes. Reddit is one hell of a place to get perspective on things. Only place you could be called a good father and cuck in the same thread. I've been wanting to write and update and answer questions for a while, but after my original post, many Reddit lawyers reached out and told me to stop talking immediately. Since things were very uncertain and my divorce wasn't settled, I decided to not respond or update anything until things calmed down. A lot has happened to so many people involved, so I think I'm just going to break it down by person. Me. I moved back to the West Coast, where I am originally from. I decided to move forward with the divorce, so I moved home. Furthermore, I had nothing left for me in that city, as I only had a few friends, my son, and a lot of bad memories. My ex and son cried a lot the day I left and that hurt my soul, but it was best for all parties involved. So I moved back home to be around my family and my support system. I got a good paying job, and I'll be subletting a 2-bedroom apartment starting next month. My son spent the holidays with me, staying with my parents, and I plan to see him on Easter. Going forward and laid out in our custody agreement, my son will stay with his mother until he is 12. I'll get him Easter and summers, and we'll switch Christmas and Thanksgiving every year. When he's 12 and needs a father figure, he'll come live with me until he is 18. I talk to my son every day on the phone for at least an hour, and I'll try to fly out there a few times a year. I can't shake the feeling that a piece of me is missing, and wish it was just my son, but I miss my wife too. My ex-wife. So the divorce is basically settled, and I obviously didn't move away with her. In the end, she saw my post and saw the comments and realized that she shouldn't have asked me to stop pursuing the case. She asked again, saying we could move and just get away from her family. Too much had happened, and our relationship was a shell of what it was. We both said and did things we forgave but can't forget. I wish this was a movie and I could just say love conquers all, or fuck her she is evil, but that isn't real life. I'm torn between both loving this person and knowing we aren't right for each other. While she didn't want to move forward with the divorce, she didn't fight me on it either. We were able to settle everything without lawyers and only use them for paperwork and fine details. We talk daily because of our son, and she says she is doing well, but last time I FaceTimed her I can tell she isn't eating. My sister said it's post-breakup hotness, whatever that means, but she looks more sick than hot. She hasn't spoken to her brothers since that day, and blames them for a lot of what happened. She and Sharon's relationship is also very strained, and they barely talk as well. Ironically, she is hardly speaking to the family she was so desperately trying to keep together. I honestly wish she would talk to her family again, because I worry about her a lot. People were very mean to my ex-wife, saying she was a terrible mother and wife. I think she lives for and would die for her family, and all her actions were to keep us together. She told me her 2 biggest regrets were moving into Sharon's house and moving out of our apartment. Those 2 actions caused most of our problems. She is a great mother to my child and I will always have her back. The brothers. I didn't expect much as far as punishment in this case. They both plead out to a simple assault, which only had minimal consequences. Both brothers spent a night in jail, got fines and anger management. The older brother had a prior incident that I mentioned in the earlier post. It was a bar fight in his early 20s, and he hit a guy with a bottle and got an assault charge. Since that case was over 15 years ago, and he's married, pillar of the community, etc., he was given probation for a year and that was the end. Both brothers have partners in life and the oldest one is married. I've known his wife for many years, and we've always been friendly. Because of the restraining order, both spouses reached out on behalf of the brothers to speak to me. I barely knew the younger brother's girlfriend, but since I knew the wife, I spoke to her. She said both brothers regretted their decision, and she asked me to lift the restraining order and not to pursue charges. We had a brief conversation, but I simply told her I don't forgive her husband and BIL, and I'm moving forward with both. As we ended the conversation, I told her not to call me again, and I haven't heard from either brother since. I don't know anything beyond what the EX tells me, and she isn't speaking to them. Sharon. So I did have it out with Sharon, and it went about as well as you can imagine. Here is a little backstory to our relationship. Let's start by saying my EX and her family are devout Christians who go to church weekly. I'm a lapsed Catholic who goes to church 3x a year. I live a very moral and ethical life, but my belief system isn't centered on the church. Furthermore, I consider myself a moderate liberal, and their family is moderate conservatives, i.e. I'm down the Second Amendment, and Sharon supported gay marriage. Ideologically we were far apart but agreed on the important things in life. The real problems began when my son was going to be baptized. My mom wanted to get our son baptized Catholic and Sharon wanted him baptized Protestant. Lots of snide remarks about Catholics were said, but I let it go at the time. The ex and I decided to wait and let our son decide, which Sharon hated. When my ex started going back to church and I wasn't in attendance, that further widened the divide. Her family would go by Sharon or someone else's house after church for lunch dinner, and I either showed up later or not at all. Every time Sharon didn't agree with a decision we made as a couple in regard to our lives, especially my son's life, she would start leaning on my wife and pressuring her behind the scenes. We would literally make a decision, and she would go to her mom's house and then come back with a different opinion. The most frustrating part is she stopped trying to talk to me at all, she would literally just call me wife and get her to change her decision. The big fight that led to us moving out was that my son wanted to play soccer and not football, but my wife's family is a huge football family. We agreed for him not to play football because he didn't want to play and our concerns about CTE. My wife comes home one day and does a 180 saying that she signed him up for football. We start arguing and Sharon comes in the house unannounced and joins the conversation, saying, "We decided it would be good for him." I got pissed and told them Sharon is not my son's parent and my ex shouldn't be so weak when her mom is pressuring her to do something we decided not to do. Then she said the words that sealed the deal, "My opinion should matter, I bought the house." I started looking for a new apartment that night and never looked back. So when we talked, and neither of us raised our voices, but it wasn't a nice conversation. I started and apologized for calling her a bitch, and she apologized for trying to keep my son without my permission. She flat out told me she wished my daughter never met me and that I've ruined her family. That her sons have criminal records now, one already did, and it's all my fault. She then started crying about not seeing my son and how she lost her only daughter. I told her she was manipulative and used her money to control the family. That she only didn't like me because she couldn't control my decision like her weak-willed family. I also told her she consistently overstepped her bounds in regard to my child and marriage, and she put her own selfish interest ahead of her daughter's happiness. After spending an hour calling each other assholes in different ways, we ended things in the same place. In the end, I told my ex her mom could see my son because Sharon loves him unconditionally, and he loves her. Call me stupid, but I think family is a big part of your upbringing. My mom isn't around him enough and every child needs a good grandma. The ex said she has been to a few family situations that were hard to avoid, wedding, funeral, Thanksgiving, but she leaves when her brothers come and my son doesn't leave her side. Sharon has seen my son and he has played with his cousin, birthday boy from original story, but she's keeping him from the family for the time being. My son, he's having a hard time with everything. It's not the fight, he thinks we were wrestling. He misses me a lot and cries on some of our phone calls. He's in therapy and all the sessions are about missing his dad and why we can't live together. It's been a few months and it's slowly getting better, but we ruined his childhood and I take my share of responsibility in that. The cousin, she is my wife's first cousin, but they are more like sisters. Sharon is her aunt by marriage, and she was the first to warn me about the family. She was also eviscerated by the comment sections for having me add to the story. She told me I was out of line for calling Sharon a bitch, but didn't feel I deserved to get beat up. Likewise, she also grabbed my son when the fight happened and took him away. She was the one who told my son we were wrestling, and she called my wife to come immediately. When Sharon was being handcuffed, the cousin came outside holding my son. I told her to give him to me, but she pointed at my swollen face and asked if she could hold him. I trusted her enough in that situation to care for my son, so I respected her enough to add those details. She didn't deserve the shit comments either. Conclusion. In the end everyone in their family read the original post, but because of divorce and assault cases, no one directly contacted me other than my ex. It wasn't a hit to say the least, but I only care that hit hurt my ex's feelings. I think seeing everything written out from my perspective opened her eyes. Obviously some things were left out and broad strokes were made to explain complex situations. In the end she said I didn't lie, but she thinks I painted her family in a horrible light. We thought about writing a joint update, but we aren't talking enough to make that happen. I told my ex about this post and asked if she wanted to read it before I posted, and she told me to write whatever I want. Nobody won here, we all lost. I'll try and respond to questions I think are relevant. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I understand everything else, but did you really have to abandon your kid? Reply. I knew I would get destroyed for this, but abandon is a strong word. I didn't abandon my son, I left for better opportunities in life for both of us. Both mentally and financially. My chosen profession has more opportunities here, I was only there for my wife and child. My career picked up during the pandemic because I could work remotely, but in office work is becoming mandatory again. I was already going to have to quit or move companies, so the timing was right. Also, my mental health is 10 times better now that I have left the city. For months, I gave my child fake smiles while trying to be a good father. I was a shell of the man I wanted to be. I'm still broken by what's happened, but I'm in a better place mentally, and in the long term, I'll be better financially. Commenter 2. Left for better opportunities in life for both of us. For you, yes. For him, not really. Reply. I was responding to something else you wrote but saw you responded to this. Your assessment of my situation is understandable. But me working for less money and being constantly unhappy isn't good for my son. If I could have stayed in state, trust me I would have, but the economy is fucked. I used all my savings to continue paying bills and lived with my parents for free to start over. Maybe I could have found happiness there, but I didn't see it happening. We are co-parenting the best we can. Stories number 12. Aita for telling my fiancé I will cancel the wedding and break up with her if she invites her friend to the wedding. My fiancé, 25F, and I, 25M, have been together for 4 years, and we're going to get married this November. My fiancé is also close friends with Sarah, 25F. Back in high school, Sarah and I were really close friends. I did ask her out, but during our first time, I kind of got stage fright, and Sarah said she did not want to proceed with it anymore. I realized over the next few weeks that Sarah had told our entire friend group about how small I was. For context, I'm a grower with an average size, but it's really small when it's soft. Looking back, it was typical high school bullshit everyone goes through, but at that moment, I really felt embarrassed and humiliated. And also because Sarah and I were really close friends from childhood and she just ghosted me after that incident. When I found out my fiancé was close friends with Sarah, I told her about that incident. My fiancé did make Sarah apologize to me, but I told her it's all in the past. However, when my fiancé asked me if we could invite Sarah to our wedding, I told her I wouldn't be okay with inviting her to the wedding. My fiancé did initially accept, but over the past week, she has been asking me about it again. She says Sarah is really repentant of what she did in high school, and that Sarah accepts she was a horrible mean girl bully. My fiancé told me Sarah is a completely different person from high school, and she really wants to attend the wedding. But I just don't want Sarah at the wedding. It's my wedding too. Sarah has texted me a lot over the past few months, and we've even spoken on the phone a few times, but last night, I had enough and blocked her. I was also upfront with my fiancé last night, and told her if she doesn't respect my wishes and invite Sarah to the wedding, I will not only cancel the wedding, but I will also break up with her. My fiancé did look really shocked when I said it, but she finally accepted that it was my wedding too, and decided she wasn't going to invite Sarah to our wedding. My fiancé apologized for making me this uncomfortable, and said I would always be her priority. I thanked my fiancé and we did have a nice and peaceful night after. Was I the AH? Stories number 13. Falling in love with my late husband's best friend. What should I do? We decided to go for it. I, 28F, lost my husband, 32M, to suicide. He left behind me and our at the time 14-month-old daughter. It was very unexpected with no history of mental health or anything. It was traumatic to say the least. I've been seeing a therapist since it happened, and although I know the grief will always be there, it's not nearly as heavy anymore. I feel as if I'm in a pretty good place with it mentally. He made the choice he did and I don't deserve to live the rest of my life suffering from his decision. My late husband had a very close-knit group of friends that grew up together. We'd all hang out often, go on trips, etc. Since his passing they've been very supportive, and I actually think we're all even closer now in our shared grief. One of these friends, 31M, is not married and doesn't have kids, so he's been more available to help out with things. As time's gone on, we've grown pretty close and text daily. He's funny and kind and he makes me smile. Him and my LH had a lot in common in terms of interests, but they're also very different personality-wise. He brings a sense of calm and understanding that I never really felt with my LH. He's also wonderful with my daughter and always has been. So was my LH. Before he passed, my LH would always say this friend needed to find a girl and get married because he'd be a great dad. I think we've both had some feelings for each other for a while now but have danced around the subject. He finally just came out and said it the other day and asked if I felt it too. We talked about it and both really enjoy each other but are afraid of how it may look. Neither of us want to rush into anything, but we both see potential for a future. I want to give my daughter a father figure one day and some siblings, and I know the older she gets the harder it will be to introduce someone. The idea of trusting anyone with her is hard and I trust him fully. Beyond that, we can talk about my LH without it being awkward or upsetting, and he understands my emotions because he's grieving too. I personally feel like as much as I loved my LH, he made that decision to leave and I have to move forward and find happiness again for myself and my daughter. It just feels right with him. We connect on so many levels and I already trust him. I also love that he has memories of him that he can share with our daughter. That being said, we both feel a little guilty for feeling this way. Our biggest setback is worrying about others' reactions. Particularly his other friends and my in-laws. I know this doesn't look great from an outsider's perspective. How should we proceed? Update. We decided to slowly step into being more than just friends and test the waters a bit. He took me out to eat at a nice restaurant this week and we had a great time. He kissed me goodnight and it felt exactly like what my heart needed. We don't plan to rush things and my priority is my daughter. Since she's only 2, we plan to just continue like normal with her. She loves having him around to play with and he loves playing with her, so it's a win-win. I talked with my sister-in-law about it first and she was not surprised nor upset by it. She said it will be hard no matter who it was, but she thinks it's great that he fits in the family so well. My in-laws reacted similarly and just said they ultimately want me to be happy. We haven't talked about it to friends yet but plan to bring it up slowly. Thank you for the advice. It made me realize that although there will always be opinions, the majority of people are understanding and supportive, and those who aren't don't matter as long as we are happy. Comments. Unfortunately, I am not a bot and this is my real life, as unbelievable as it seems at times. I have been going to a therapist regularly since 2 weeks out. She's only 2 and she likes pretty much everyone including him. Haha. Of all his friends he was probably one of the one I always related to most, but I was happily married and didn't think of him as anything other than his friend. This soap opera happens to be my life. Unfortunately, no ChatGPT necessary. I really don't know. I'd like to think he would be happy that someone he trusts could potentially help raise his daughter. But also maybe he'd hated it, and unfortunately he's not here to ask. I still talk to him occasionally when I'm alone and struggling with something, at my therapist's suggestion. A few weeks ago I talked to him about this, and when I got in the car on the way to go see this friend, a song came on the radio with lyrics about the singer wanting his wife to move on if he died. It felt like he heard me and that was a sign from him. Or at least I like to think so. Maybe I'm just going crazy. Somebody asked if she would like if the roles were reversed and her husband would start to date her best friend after she died. Actually yes, I would, because I'd trust my best friends with my daughter more than anyone else. I think that helped answer my question. Thanks. Stories number 14. AIO for leaving my racist wife. I, 30M, am in a situation I never imagined would happen in my life, and I'm trying to figure out if I'm the asshole here. My wife, 28F, and I have been together for 6 years, married for 3. We've had a good relationship for most of it, and I've always believed in the idea that people can learn, grow, and change. But recently, I've started to feel like I don't even recognize the person I'm married to anymore. I've known my wife to be generally kind, but she's also always had some problematic views that I chalked up to being raised in a certain environment. I thought if I just showed her different perspectives and tried to open her mind to new ideas, it would make a difference. But over the last few months, those views have become more extreme and vocal, and it's honestly gotten to the point where I can't ignore it anymore. It started with little comments here and there, things like making jokes about people from certain racial backgrounds or using slurs in casual conversation. I'd ask her to stop, and she'd apologize and promise to be more careful. But over time, these comments started happening more often and weren't as casual anymore. They began to sound more like actual beliefs. She'd talk about how certain people are ruining the country or that immigrants don't belong here. She'd complain about how things like affirmative action or diversity programs were unfair, and that it was all just a way to make sure people who don't deserve it were getting opportunities over hardworking Americans. I tried talking to her about it, calmly explaining why those views are harmful and just flat out wrong. I even asked her if she ever really thought about how those views might hurt others or what kind of impact they have on the world. At first, she was defensive but then seemed to understand that it was about more than just political correctness. She said she'd try to be better, and I wanted to believe her. But things only got worse. One day, I overheard her talking to her sister on the phone, making some truly vile comments about a news story involving a minority group. She was outright calling them dangerous and claiming that they were all criminals or couldn't contribute to society. It was in that moment that I realized this wasn't just ignorance or a phase, this was who she was, and she wasn't willing to change. I don't know why it took me so long to face the truth. I guess I wanted to believe that the woman I loved wasn't capable of those views. But after that phone call, I just couldn't pretend anymore. I told her we needed to talk, and when I confronted her about what I had overheard, she didn't even try to deny it. She got angry at me for spying and said that I was just being dramatic. She even accused me of being too liberal and that I was the one with the problem, not her. I told her I couldn't stay in a relationship with someone who held those views and refused to even try to understand how harmful they were. I told her I was leaving. She was shocked and tried to talk me out of it, but I stood firm. I moved out of our shared apartment that night, and since then, she's been texting me non-stop, calling me weak and saying I'm overreacting. Her friends have also been reaching out, accusing me of abandoning her over a difference of opinion. So, here I am, wondering if I made the right choice. I know this is a big decision, but I feel like I had no other option. I don't want to spend my life with someone who holds those beliefs, and I don't want to raise children with someone who thinks like that. But at the same time, I'm getting a lot of pressure from people saying I should have tried harder, that I shouldn't have just walked away. AIO for leaving my wife over her racist views. Stories number 15. My partner went to a wedding where no one knew why they got invited. My partner got invited to a wedding of a super loose acquaintance because she's an extrovert and just likes going to weddings, but admitted that she's not sure why she was invited in the first place, because the couple doesn't know her that well. When she got to the wedding, she found out that a lot of people felt that way. There were about 100 people at the wedding and most of the guests were co-workers of the couple, and it didn't seem like they had many close friends. Has anyone ever encountered a wedding like this? I keep wondering why the couple bothered throwing a wedding at all considering how expensive it is to have a party for 100 people. Has anyone had this experience before? Stories number 16. I advised a fellow trainee about a wardrobe malfunction and now have a meeting scheduled with HR due to accusations of sexual harassment. Looking for advice as I feel sick with worry. Hi all. Made this as a throwaway to protect my identity. Sorry if this isn't really the right place but not sure where else to post and need some advice. I'm a trainee at a decently sized city firm. Earlier this week, I was walking behind one of my fellow, female, trainees and noticed that their underwear, thong style, was showing above their skirt. She had come out of the bathroom 15 seconds or so before, so I imagined she just had noticed. I thought of ignoring it but then knew she could have been attending a client meeting or similar, so I just ran up to her and said, "Hey X, sorry to point this out and wasn't sure whether to say anything, but your thong is showing above your skirt." She looked embarrassed but thanked me and readjusted her skirt. We then made awkward small talk before we went in different directions. I hadn't thought anything more of it until I got an email from HR on Friday saying that I was being investigated for sexual harassment and have been asked to attend a meeting. I am aware that this is what it was about and now feel sick with worry. I have barely eaten or slept this weekend. There was nothing sexual or suggestive intended by my comments and was trying to look out for my colleague in a professional capacity. I wouldn't say we're particularly close but we get on well and I'd consider her a friend at least. Should I message her to apologize and explain? I've never been in a situation like this before and extremely worried about losing my TC because of a misunderstanding. Update. I advised a fellow trainee about a wardrobe malfunction and now have a meeting scheduled with HR due to accusations of sexual harassment. Looking for advice as I feel sick with worry. Hi everyone. Sorry for the lack of engagement with my previous post after the initial responses. It was an overwhelming time and I didn't expect the post to blow up the way it did. Nonetheless, I really appreciate all the comments and thoughts and I read all of them in preparation for the meeting. As plenty of people asked, I thought I would provide an update. I went to the HR meeting, in what was effectively a disciplinary meeting, early this week. I was offered the chance to have a representative present but I was confident in my own position and decided against doing so. I was told the reasoning for the meeting, which was exactly as many of you thought. A female colleague had felt uncomfortable and sexually harassed by how I'd approached her and commented on her underwear in the office, particularly the use of the word thong, which she considered to be intrusive and sexually motivated. She detailed that she wears thongs for practical reasons in the office and it's not my business to comment on what she chooses to wear. I'd appreciate any comments but this seems somewhat ridiculous. I'm not disputing she can wear thongs to the office and they may be practical, but are they construed as sexual? Or was that just her interpretation? Anyway, I remained calm and explained my position. I said that I just wanted to prevent another colleague from potential embarrassment when I was aware that her underwear was showing. As for my use of the word thong, I said that in no way was this meant to be sexually motivated, and I was just factually describing what I saw, which was that the style was a thong. I asked if any other accusations had been leveled against me, but I was told that this was the only incident that had been reported, which somewhat put me at ease as I had been stressed thinking of anything else that I could have been blamed for. I also queried how else I should have approached the situation and whether it would have been better to say nothing or just used an alternative word to thong, despite my assertions that it was factually correct. The HR rep answered that whilst a final decision would not be made and my answers would be taken into account, it's better to use completely neutral language in a work setting that cannot be taken out of context. I disagreed, and felt I did use such language, but said I understood as to not seem difficult. I was told I would be informed of the outcome as soon as possible after the meeting. I was informed the next day via email that they were happy that no misconduct had taken place and that as the disciplinary process had concluded, no further action would be taken. I have to say I'm relieved that common sense has prevailed because this did take a mental toll. I haven't seen my colleague since this has all gone down and will make every effort to keep a distance from now on. I'll remain civil but keep any conversations strictly neutral and work-related. I really hope this doesn't impact my chances of converting my TC, but I'm not worrying about that now. Oh, and for future reference, I'm both never commenting if I see a wardrobe malfunction or using the word thong again, so lessons learned. Stories number 17. Sam Harris doesn't think Elon did a Nazi salute. I received an email from Sam Harris that shared his views on recent events. He wrote the following directly under a picture of Elon's clear Nazi salute. Did he really perform a Nazi salute twice? Probably not. Why do I think this? Like so much else that passes for insight at this moment, it's just a feeling. Very disappointing to see Sam not call it what it clearly is. I don't know whether or not to believe that he really feels that way, but I think he's been open enough about his views on Elon to say that it's a safe bet he is telling the truth here. Unless fear is guiding his words, which isn't impossible. It's extremely disappointing though. I have never seen a more clear and passionately done Nazi salute. Elon has doubled and tripled down since he did it. This is absurd. Edit, I did not mean to imply that Sam emailed me personally. The email was automated and sent his Substack writings. The quote I used was from his recent post titled, The Great Acquiescence. Stories number 18. I used to experience skinny privilege, but now that I'm fat I get treated very differently. TW, eating disorders / self-image. I'm a woman who's 5'3" and I used to sit around the 130-pound mark. Now I don't want to say I had pretty privilege, but I definitely had skinny privilege. People as a whole were a lot nicer to me, men spoke to me very differently, and I used to basically just get treated as a human. People used to tell my partner that he was punching above his weight and I'm such a catch, etc. Shop owners were a lot nicer to me, people on social media would reply to my stories all the time with encouraging words, and life overall was just being treated well. Well, I'm currently pregnant for the third time in a few years and pregnancy just isn't kind to me at all. I gain about 50 pounds or more per pregnancy and it's just something I can't help. My last child was born in the second half of 2023 and I went back to work when she was 5 weeks old, so I didn't have much time to lose the baby weight with her and my other kids, plus running a household and working full time. I'm now pregnant again, around 5 months, and have gained 10 pounds. The way I get treated now, it's like night and day difference. Men at work tell me how fit our female colleagues are, ask me for tips on how to flirt with them and ask if I could imagine having a body like that. That's just the tip of the iceberg. When I wear a new outfit I get a lot of, "Oh, that shapes you so well. That's so slimming." Shop assistants aren't as helpful. I even got asked recently to see if I even knew what size I was looking for because I accidentally picked up a small size. I went to the public pool today in a one-piece, obviously not looking like a model, and the side eyes were insane. I just hate that society is like this. I'm still the same person, always have been, I just have some weight to lose now is all. I can't help but to keep mental notes of who is noticeably different, because once I lose the baby weight I need to lose, I won't be forgetting I was treated this way. Edit, geez, I'm sorry for calling it a privilege. I didn't think / know what else to call it. This also wasn't meant to spark a gender debate. Stories number 19. Aita for reneging on letting someone live with me because they said they won't sleep with me. I'm 29M, she is 28F. We've been platonic friends since university a few years ago. We're not super close friends but have hung out on occasion, although we used to hang out a lot more on campus. She has fallen under financial duress and I offered to let her live in my spare room while she gets her bearing. This was a month or so in planning, and she was due to move in the second week of February. We were talking more about our situation going forward and she said an off-the-cuff remark, "Just be aware I will not be sleeping with you." Just out of the blind. We don't have that type of relationship, nor do I want it to progress to that. I don't even joke flirt with her or put innuendos in my speech, so this took me by surprise. She had an assumption I had an ulterior motive. I told her as much and said that comment make me think of our friendship in a different, negative, way, and I have to think a bit more about our arrangements. I said as much to be polite, but what I want is more time to articulate a way to back out. She said it was just a standard rule that she'd tell to any roommates. I am not a woman so I don't know if this is how it is, but it seemed really condescending. Ada here. Sorry, I am ESL, so if my grammar is bad, my mistake. Stories number 20. My 31M husband, 29M, and our daughter's mother, 31F, decided to overrule my decision and gifted our daughter a book set I don't approve. How do I go about this without it ending up in a three-way fight? I know our situation is a bit unusual. My daughter's mother and I had a one-night stand when we were both 18, which resulted in our daughter, who is now 13. A year later I had met my now husband, and my daughter's mother had also met her now husband. Luckily for us, we all get along and all co-parent together. I should mention that my husband and her are two peas in a pod. They became best friends, and while it's a blessing most of the time, in discussions like this it's a pain in the ass. They're both avid readers of thriller, fantasy, romantics, dark romance, etc., and they bond over it. My husband occasionally ropes me into buddy reading a series with them, and about a year ago, all three of us read A Kotar by Sarah J. Maas. They loved it. I found it disgusting. Not a big deal, to each their own, until our daughter, who had picked up on reading from them, asked to read it. I told her immediately no. Not only does it have explicit sexual scenes, it also has topics I don't want her exposed to at such a young age. They didn't go against me in front of her, she asked over blended family lunch, but they had made their displeasure clear in private, saying it's just a fantasy series, it would be healthy for her to be exposed to books like that so she has a healthy outlook on sex, it would be healthy for her to read about a strong independent FMC, etc. They were quite literally like twins pinging off of each other. One says something and the other builds up on that, and vice versa. I stood firm with a hell no. Regardless of my views, facts are facts. The series has slavery, entrapment, sexual assault and physical assault, not just by the villain, but by the MMC, who is supposed to be morally gray, explicit sexual scenes that are disturbing, with the highlight of the MMC reaching his peak to an image of his child, racial discrimination about a magical species, classism, etc. They said that I'm reading too much into it, it's just a series, it's supposed to be just fun, and I agree. I usually don't care about the books my husband asks me to read with him, but this series was so blatant that it was disgusting, and I don't want my impressionable young daughter to be reading it. Not to mention the series rating is 16+. They weren't happy, but her husband had also backed me up since we had discussed the series before, so imagine my goddamn surprise when my daughter came back from her mother's yesterday and hugged me and thanked me for letting her read the series with my husband looking guilty behind her. I didn't react and still haven't reacted, if I'm honest. Sometimes my husband gets carried away and I can tell that's what happened here, but I'm still pissed. As far as I know, she's barely started the first book, which is the most tame of the series, so that's something, and is going to be reading it at her mom's using her copies. I know I can't dictate what happens when she's there, but I also can't back down on this. How do I go about this? Stories number 21. Married couples only, invited to the wedding, despite us being together longer than the happy couple. Crass. My, late 20s, partner, early 30s, and I were originally sent the save the date for the wedding of his good university friend, both bride and groom in their late 20s. We all live in the same city and have probably hung out as couples once a month ever since post-COVID when they moved here. My partner was originally asked to be a groomsman, before it was decided that the wedding party would be family only, totally understandable as there are 6 siblings combined. We got the save the date 12 months in advance, and an invite in both our names about 3 months ago. The wedding is next month. Yesterday, my partner went out for a drink with the groom, and was told that he was so sorry, but unfortunately I was having my invite rescinded, as they have decided that all +1s have to be engaged or married. I and several other girls/boyfriends have been removed from the attendee list, and even some of their aunts and uncles are being told that their partners cannot attend anymore. When asked why, they have supposedly decided that they want their day to be a true celebration of love, and therefore only want committed couples in attendance. If it wasn't clear from the title, my partner and I have been in a relationship longer than the bride and groom. We've been together 9 years this year. Their wedding day will be on the day of their 6th anniversary. Neither of us have any interest in getting married, nor everyone in our lives knows this, and, we thought, respected our decision. My partner is still invited. Thankfully the wedding is in the local area, so there were no prepaid expenses for us, though I know some of the other couples won't be so lucky. My partner still hasn't made his mind up on whether or not to attend. I'm content either way on his decision. It honestly does hurt to be told in an around the houses way that someone thinks my relationship is less than theirs because we are not going to get married, but I am choosing to sit back and watch it unfold rather than get upset on someone else's behalf. And after about a dozen weddings in my lifetime, I now get one I can post about on this sub. Stories number 22. AIO that my husband was disgusted by me not wanting to work out without my headphones. My gym is about a 5-minute drive from our house. I grabbed the headphone case and drove to the gym. When I got there, I saw that they were empty and realized my husband took them when he went on his walk. He usually takes an hour to finish his walk, so I figured the timing worked out, and if I head back home, he'd be finishing up and I could grab them and head back to the gym. I was right, he showed up 2 minutes after I got home. When I told him what happened, He was seriously disgusted by my actions and called me self-indulgent and pathetic and told me that he doesn't respect me for my decision. I was taken aback and didn't think it was a big deal to do what I did. I may have spent a total 15 minutes for the round trip, including waiting for the headphones. I feel really upset that he feels this way about me. I really do like listening to my own music at the gym. I feel more focused and determined. It's a helpful tool for me to get a more productive workout in. Is what I did so bad? Edit. Some of you are asking for more context. So here we go. Yes, we're in a rough patch in our relationship right now, I guess. We're dealing with quite a bit of stress recently. That's probably is what is making him extra mean lately. We need to be nicer to each other, but it's hard to start when I have to deal with this crap in the morning. Thanks for enlightening me and showing me he was truly out of line this time. I'm going to have a talk with him today and show him that it is normal to want to have headphones during a workout and he's the weirdo in this case. I wouldn't have been so upset if he called me out on being spoiled or whatever in a joking way, but this was too far. He talks about us having different values for certain things. While I do agree, I don't think a lot of people would share his values, to be honest. He also said that I'm going to the gym to work out, not listen to music. I don't even know how to respond to that. Also, yes, I should just get another pair. And no, this is not AI generated. I wish it was. Sadly it is my life. Edit 2. Since a lot of people are asking for another update, I spoke to him and he understood that he was way out of line. We need to go to some kind of couples therapy, I believe, to make sure this doesn't happen again. Stories number 23. They thought it was safe to leave a 4-year-old home alone. What to do? Advice needed. Hi, long-time listener to the show. First time writing anything like this. But I am just fuming and am going crazy. My F32, mom, F52, and dad, M54, left my son, M4, home alone. So I left my son to stay the night with my parents, which is does every few weeks. Not for child care, but just because he liked to spend time with them and his uncles. This day I was on my way to pick up my son from my parents' house and I got a call from my mom saying that she and my dad have to leave the house and my son is refusing to put on his shoes and that they will leave him home with the door unlocked for me to go in and get him. The drive was about 30 minutes from where I was at that point. I told them not to leave him there and to take him with them to where they were heading, as I have to go past the place to their house anyway. I got a call 5 minutes later to say they have left the house and that my son would not put his shoes on, so they left him there. Well, I saw red and immediately starting shouting and hysterically crying, telling them to go back and get my son or I will call the police. They cannot leave a 4-year-old by himself. They did go back and get him, so he was only alone for 5 to 10 minutes. But my mom then repeatedly kept saying that I am stressing her out. And that they have a ring bell so can see if anyone comes in or out the house. They can't see the inside of the house. Later that day my mom called me screaming and swearing that what is my problem and that I stressed her out. I'm just baffled that 2 adults made the decision that it is safe to leave a 4-year-old in the house alone. I have no idea what to do. I really want to call the police, but it is my mom and it will worsen the family dynamics as it's not great anyway. They are a toxic parents from the beginning, and to be honest I want to cut ties, but that it's something that is unheard of in my culture. Sorry if this doesn't make sense. This happened yesterday and I am still so angry I'm shaking. Stories number 24. Employee tries to kick me off a mobility cart. This is my first experience with an entitled person other than my mother, and I'm not sure if it belongs here or not. I'm 18F, but sometimes people think I'm 15 to 16 due to my baby face and severe acne. I have POTS along with permanent nerve damage in my legs. This leads me to using mobility carts in stores like Walmart if I can find them. See where this is going? I go grocery shopping with my dad. He helps me with things that I might not be able to get myself, especially if I can't find a mobility cart. So we walk into Walmart, and I see 3 mobility carts lined up against the wall. My dad tells me that he's going to go to the bathroom, so I get in a cart and I wait by the shelves nearest to the entrance. An employee asks me if I'm waiting for anyone, and I tell her I'm waiting for my dad. I'm not sure if she saw us walk in or not. It also didn't click for me that she may be questioning about why I'm on the cart. My dad comes out of the bathroom and meets up with me, and off we go. Before I get very far, the employee yells at me, "Ma'am, that cart is for handicapped people only." I was taken aback, so I stutter and say, I know, I am handicapped." She replies, "You walked in here, didn't you? You can walk around the store." Getting more irritated, I tell her that the details of my disabilities are none of her business, but I can assure her I am. She walks over to me, turns off the cart, and tries to yank me out of it. My dad steps in and gets in between her and I, and he says, "What the fuck do you think you're doing? My daughter said that she's disabled. Are you really going to interrogate everyone who grabs this cart about their health?" She gets red in the face, and says, she's too young to be disabled. She's just being lazy. At this point I thought my dad was going to start throwing hands with this woman. We obviously attracted a crowd, and security walks over. My dad and I explain the situation, and to her credit she says exactly what happened. The security guard asks if I have proof of disability, and I get up to walk with my legs buckling and my right leg being bowed in. That's good enough proof for him, and he walks off. She says, well, why didn't you do that in the first place? I tell her because I don't need to prove anything to a random stranger with no authority. She seems slightly embarrassed and mumbles something under her breath, then she goes back to where she was standing. My dad just go on with our shopping. Some people, ETA, I did call the corporate number and reported her. I didn't have her name but I had the times and her description. I'm not sure if anything will become of this or not. Update, I filed a police report and contacted the store manager. The officer I talked to said that he'd see what he can do, and the store manager said that he'd get to the bottom of it and there will be consequences. Hoping there actually are, and I'm not sure the officer took my report seriously. There does seem to be some action being taken though. Stories number 25. To fool by not going to the doctor for my heartburn. Over the past year, I began experiencing pain. It felt like the center of my chest was on fire. Due to the burning sensation and the location, I assumed that it must be what heartburn felt like. I'm in my mid-20s now. My parents always have Tums on hand, and my best friend often complains of it, so I assumed that it was something that happened with age. I went to the store and bought some antacid chews and pills, and was sure to keep them on hand. If I had something I knew could trigger it, like Chinese food, I would be sure to take some before I went to bed. At first, the chews seemed to help. If I woke up with heartburn, I would take some and sit in an upright position until the pain went away. But after a while, it began to seem like it wasn't really helping. I also noticed it tended to happen in bursts. If I had heartburn, I knew I would be more likely to have it again the next day, so I was careful with food. However, I could go months without having it at all. Last week, I woke up and felt a bit of discomfort coming on. I took a tablet and went back to sleep. I woke up an hour later in a lot of pain. I took more chews. I ate saltines. I sat in an upright position. Nothing was helping. It was bad enough that honestly I couldn't even sit still. I realized at that point that heartburn probably was not meant to hurt this much, but honestly I wasn't really thinking at all anymore. It was becoming agony, and all I wanted was the pain to stop. I thankfully actually only live a few minutes away from a hospital, so I drove myself over. It was around 5 in the morning and empty. I told them that it just hurt really bad in the center of my chest, and they got me back right away. At this point the pain was very bad. I was rating it at an 8 out of 10, I was worried I was being dramatic, and I began throwing up. As they were tending to me, they asked, do you have a family history of gallbladder issues? Oh my God. Yes. My sister had hers out a few years ago, my mom had hers out, my aunt had hers out, and my grandma on that side had hers out too. How did I not think of that? They gave me a bunch of meds, then took me to ultrasound, and yep. Gallstones, and actually stones stuck in the neck that would not clear, which is why the pain wouldn't stop. A surgeon soon was in to talk to me and told me that while they can't tell for sure based on the ultrasound, it was possible I had cholecystitis. He said my gallbladder had to come out no matter what, but that possible diagnoses only increased the urgency of when. I told him I just wanted to get this over with, and a few hours later, I was in my first ever surgery. It was confirmed during the surgery that I indeed had cholecystitis. I spent the night in the hospital for the very first time too. Did you know you can order chocolate shakes at 7 a.m.? It's been a week now and recovery is going well. I'm happy that I'm never going to experience that horrible heartburn ever again. But I'm also kicking myself for having gallstone attacks for a year without realizing it. I won't ever ignore health issues like that ever again. TLDR, the heartburn I had been experiencing for the past year was gallstone attacks the entire time. Stories number 26. Having visited Japan, I feel disappointed in America now. I'm an NYC native, born and raised. Had a business trip for work to Tokyo. It's wild how much it felt like a real society and community as opposed to NYC. Nobody is rude, everyone is super clean. Nobody is jumping their subway turnstiles. Meanwhile we have had the same generic scammers, Elmos, CDs, fake charity/kids basketball team donations, standing in Times Square with cops watching as they scam tourists. People are behaving like people instead of being monkeys and pigs. Stories number 27. Aita for taking back the car I gave to my stepdaughter after she disrespected me. I, 45M, married my wife, Clara, 43F, 5 years ago. She has a daughter, Lily, 17F, from her previous marriage. I've always tried to build a good relationship with Lily, but it's been an uphill battle. She's polite but distant and has made it clear I'm just her mom's husband. Still, I've done my best to support her, driving her to soccer games, helping with homework, and showing up whenever I could. Clara hasn't been working for the past 2 years. She left her job to pursue her dream of becoming an artist. I supported her decision, even though it meant I had to take on more hours at work to keep us afloat. It's been tight financially, but I wanted Clara to feel fulfilled, and I believed we'd get through it together. Last year, Lily got her driver's license, and despite the extra strain, I worked overtime to save up and buy her a used car. It wasn't anything fancy, just a 2010 Honda Civic, but I wanted her to have some independence. I thought it might also help bridge the gap between us. When I handed her the keys, she seemed happy, even gave me a hug, which felt huge coming from her. I thought we were making progress. Last month, I overheard Lily talking to a friend. She said, "I hate him. He's pathetic, thinking that car will make me like him. I just pretend to be nice so mom doesn't get mad." Her words felt like a punch to the gut. I've sacrificed so much to support this family, and hearing her mock me like that crushed me. I told Clara what I'd overheard, hoping she'd back me up, but she brushed it off. "Lily's a teenager. She doesn't mean it. Just let it go." But I couldn't let it go. A week later, I asked Lily directly if she really felt that way. She didn't deny it. She just shrugged and said, "I didn't ask for the car, so I don't owe you anything." When I told her how much her words hurt, she rolled her eyes and said, "If you're that upset, take the car back." I don't care. So, I did. The next day, I took the spare key, drove the car to a dealership, and sold it. I figured the money could go toward the bills I've been struggling to cover since Clara stopped working. When Lily found out, she was furious. She called me a petty jerk and said I was punishing her for being honest. Clara blew up, too. She accused me of overreacting and claimed I'd ruined my relationship with Lily permanently. Clara argued that I should have consulted her first and said my actions were unfair, especially since Lily is just a kid. She also pointed out that Lily is already struggling emotionally because of our financial situation, which she says I'm constantly bringing up. But I'm tired of being disrespected. I've worked so hard to keep this family afloat while Clara chases her dreams, and I feel like I've been taken for granted by both of them. Now the house is tense. Clara says I need to apologize and consider buying Lily another car, but I feel like that would just enable her behavior. Aita for taking back the car I gave her after she disrespected me. Stories number 28. Aita for threatening my dad that I will live with my mom full time if my stepmom doesn't stop bashing her parenting skills. I, 15M, have been alternating weeks between my parents' homes basically my whole life. They split up when I was a baby and have both remarried since. I've been happy for the most part. I love my stepdad and my siblings, have some on both sides. My only issue has been my stepmom. To be honest, I wouldn't say I had any real issues in the past. I do find her more annoying with more strict rules than what I have at my mom's house. She's a vice principal, very serious, but recently, she has been taking shots to my dad and I about my mom and stepdad, which might have always been a thing, but now that I'm older she is just doing it more in front of me, saying things like she doesn't take my education seriously, she's never grown up, they flaunt their money in front of her and my dad, they spoil me, they let me get away with everything. I honestly don't even know where she comes up with this. My dad doesn't really say anything, agrees occasionally, but it's been making me angrier and angrier. Obviously, I would never admit it to my dad, but I do love my mom more. She is like the most awesome and important person to me, and hearing my stepmom say crap just made me boil over. I finally broke and yelled at her after she blamed my mom for me getting a poor mark on an exam. I told her to shut her mouth about my mom and that if she said one more word, I would pack a bag and stay with my mom permanently. My dad flipped and yelled at me to apologize, but I told him if he didn't make her apologize that I was leaving. He said my mom would never allow it, and I made the mistake of saying we talked about it before. He then called my mom and started a fight with her, thinking she put me up to this. I couldn't handle it, so I left the house and called my stepdad to come get me. I've been at my mom's, but my dad's been texting and calling every day, jumping from begging me to come home, apologizing, to getting into fights with my mom and stepdad. I feel like an asshole for causing a huge fight between my families. Edit. Thank you everyone for the replies so far. I know I shouldn't have said it was something my mom and I talked about. We did a few years ago when I was like 12 when I wanted to stay longer at my mom's and had like a moment where I got upset and told her it was hard sometimes not seeing her for a week, but that was the only time it was ever mentioned. So I feel like an ass for saying it. As for people asking me about custody agreements, I don't think there is any. They had me really young, 20 years old, and they split when I was a baby. I was with my mom all the time till I was 3 or 4, and then I started spending more consecutive days with my dad. My mom also has never asked my dad for child support, and to be honest I don't think she would even if I stayed full-time. Stories number 29. Am I overreacting? My husband told me he carved me and my daughter's names into bullets. TLDR, if you don't read to the bottom, it says we are trying to get out before he wakes up. We didn't live together before we got married. I come from a religious background and it's highly frowned upon. He was not like this before we got married. I am divorcing him. We are moving out in a panic. My husband M35 and I F34 have been married for a year now. I brought my F7 daughter into this marriage, making him her stepdad. This whole year has destroyed me in the name of fair. Let me explain. My husband wants everything, I mean everything, split 50-50. Well, more like 70-30, as he wants to only take care of himself and I am responsible for only my daughter and I. To the point of if we go out to eat, he only covers his meal, and I have to cover mine and my daughter's. He's always wanted to split all bills 50-50. Rent, utilities, car payments, tolls. He also splits food. I am responsible for buying my daughter and I's food and cooking it, and if I don't make enough money to feed myself or her, he tells me to go fuck myself and go to a soup kitchen. One time my card declined due to a gas station hold. I was at McDonald's, my daughter had low blood sugar and I called him begging, sobbing, absolutely begging and pleading to borrow $10 to get food to get her sugar up and I'd pay him in a few hours. He said no, we have food at home. He was about an hour away. I told him she could be unconscious by then. And he said, well, I guess she'll have to faint cause you're a shitty mom and should plan ahead next time. Told me to fuck myself and hung up. When I cook meals with food I bought, I offer them to him. I was raised to believe marriage was about give and take and love. He tells me it's gross and leaves and goes out to eat alone. I owed him $100 from borrowing it desperately one time. I do not borrow from him as a habit, cause yikes, and he called me and chewed me out to where I was sobbing and paid him my daughter Christmas gift money, leaving me with no money for her gifts. I had to reach out to the community to get her free gifts so she didn't feel unloved. I need you to know that while I'm expected to work full-time and contribute to half the bills, I am also in charge of all of the dishes, all of the time. All of the laundry, all of the time. All floors, sweeping and mopping. All tidying up, picking up and organizing. All scrubbing, cleaning the bathrooms, taking the trash out, changing the light bulbs, car oil changes, car washes, making sure bills got paid, taxes, all extracurricular activities and any needs at all for my daughter, to the extreme. She broke down destroyed that I still can't afford a party for her. Side note, I know it's not his kid, I know she is my responsibility. But it's still a family. And if I'm pregnant, and there's a chance I am right now, he would probably help his actual kid and my daughter would watch and realize how little she is valued to him. It's just sad because he used to be her whole world. He makes about 90 grand and I make 40 on a good year. My daughter suffered an injury last fall and I've had to homeschool her till this week. She goes back to school Wednesday and I can make more income, but it's been so hard to survive. I've starved myself to make sure she eats, as my husband doesn't budge. I am trying to get through school. I was in a physically abusive relationship before, her real dad, and gave up my career for us to be a family and had to start over. My husband told me that the price I just pay for not graduating from college is to order a soup at the restaurant while he orders a steak. He said I am inherently less valuable. He said if I get pregnant and have to stay home for a few months with a newborn, and can't make it work where I work full-time and watch him full-time, I must choose a bowl of soup as a punishment for not making it work. By the way, he has no chores. He works, watches porn, a lot of it, and plays video games. He trashes his room, like trash everywhere all the time. He eats all the food all the time. When he's upset he farts, so we have to leave whatever room we were hanging in because it's so bad due to his diet. He started rage driving lately and I asked that he not do that with my daughter in the car and he screamed that he will do whatever the fuck he wants. She's terrified to ride with him no and I'll never let him again. He once shoved me away from him and he said he didn't realize I was so light. I've lost 50 pounds this year, so I went slamming into a suitcase and got a whelp. The other night he said he's been carving our names into bullets and that they'll be in us one day. I hope he was joking. He would say he was and then mock me for taking him serious. I confronted him later and he denied it. Said I must have misheard. He tells me I'm not that pretty. I've been told I am my whole life and it's so weird hearing this from him and it's confusing. He tells me I'll be dead from health issues soon. The doc thinks I have Addison's disease and lupus. He tells me I'm a fucking bitch, worthless, valueless, stupid, an idiot, have no brain cells, all the time, and that he only loves me sometimes, if that. I'm not sure he's ever done something for me that didn't benefit him, otherwise he'll say no. It's like I'm gentle parenting a child. He can't stand my daughter because I take focus away from him. Today my daughter and I were pretty sick. I had taken 3 bags of trash out next to the door cause they stunk. I asked if he could have walked them across the complex due to me being sick. He said no and put them all inside to stink, letting me know I could take them to the dumpster when I'm better. He then let me know I'm the only created of trash in the home, and that I am no longer allowed to use his trash can or trash bags. He then looked at the bag, noticed a paper ramen container in it, tore the bag open and grabbed it in a rage, and chucked it 15 feet across the room in my direction, and it landed right next to me. I told him I'm sorry, but it was super expired and I was trying to save him the stomach issues of eating that expired of food. He demanded I clean it off and told me to never fucking touch his trash or stuff again. He's also demanding I drive across town and buy his ramen from some store. He doesn't even remember the flavor it was, or else he will get revenge. He made a smirk remark that he probably won't hurt me. I asked what that meant and what he would hurt. He implied he might destroy baby pictures. I started shaking in panic cleaning. Anyway, I'm up early packing and trying to get out of the door. I still owe him a final $100, and he says he's allowed to verbally abuse me until it's paid. Note, he did lend me the $100 2 separate times, I did not take it. Other note, I'm in Texas. Married property is mutual property and abortions are banned. I have like $1 to my name. I was trying to get everything to the car and get out before he woke up, but I can hear his TV blaring and him laughing like crazy at it. It's not even 8 a.m. My daughter is asleep. I am depleted. It's freezing cold. I was to scream. What if he was serious about the bullets? He'll say I'm dumb that I believed him. I need to sleep. If you pray, please pray we can get out before he wakes. Thanks for listening. Stories number 30. Discovered an uncle who is actively posting suggestive photos of child family members to a photo exchange site. I'm an independent journalist who is working on a few pieces regarding child abuse and exploitation. By following the source of some Instagram photos, I discovered a lot of disturbing accounts. One of which is an uncle who is actively posting photos of the various minors in his family. Particularly of one girl who is his favorite. What is particularly concerning is that he is doxing this girl by posting photos of her from sporting events, revealing her location and school by extension, her name, her teammates' names, that she is a twin, etc. Her school has a tip line and I already shared with them that their sporting events are being publicized on such a website. However, I feel personally concerned about the girl and her family. Is there anything else I can do? Some comments. Commenter, you need to talk to her parents. Ask. Reply, unfortunately, these are people I do not know and it is in a state that I don't live. I don't know how to contact her parents or I definitely would. Commenter, why would a journalist need to be told to call police? Reply, I guess I'm just not sure of internet laws/specific jurisdictions. Especially because it is a Russian website, the guy and his family are definitely located in the United States though. I can't provide her last name. Just her first name and what school she attends. Do you think their local police would still benefit from the limited info? Commenter, I don't think it is illegal if these are fully clothed pictures for him to upload these pictures to the website unfortunately. I say that because I don't know the content you found but the police may not be able to do anything so you'd have to just let the parents know yourself if that is the case. Reply, this is the main issue. They are not explicit but suggestive, lots of beach, hot tub, swim team, feet photos, etc. The comments, however, are extremely sexual and express a clear motive to why they are posted. Especially with the user also advertising his encrypted email address. Commenter, FBI tip line for CSAM. Reply, I think this is probably the next step I will take. Commenter, probably. You need to. Reply, I meant, out of all of the options suggested, this is what makes the most sense with it being international and not directly explicit. Commenter, using the term journalist loosely if you need to turn to Reddit about what to do in this situation. Reply, you're not wrong, but I felt as if I should provide some context into how I came upon this. Though I'm not a journalist by trade with a lot of experience or resources, I am a writer who is passionate about bringing awareness to this particular subject. Even if only to a few people. I was trying to research a more general topic and never imagined I would stumble upon the very intimate and specific details of a young girl's life. I want to do right by her and thought it important to consult. Commenter, if you are researching the ways children are exploited, it feels irresponsible not to be aware of how to report it. Frankly, avenues for reporting should be part of the piece, but I imagine that is up to an editor. Reply, your statement is true and important. I will do more to better educate myself, starting immediately. Especially laws regarding international internet regulation. How it was found. I found the page in question by searching the source of a different, unrelated photo from IG to see if it appeared on any other sites. It did. It led me to a whole minor foot fetish community. In one click. From there, I found the account in question because he had made a sexual comment on the original photo. The comments on the photos he posts are very like-minded. The entire site is devoted to sharing these types of, not necessarily malicious, photos, all the while the users are posting heinous comments. Many users advertise encrypted email addresses. I feel the website allows like-minded individuals to further connect/exchange. Update. The FBI and NCMEC have been contacted, in addition to the school administration. It has also been reported to the Internet Watch Foundation. I want to further emphasize that the photos are not directly explicit. I have no proof of harm, just malicious intent. I have discerned this through the type of website the photos are on, the comments made by the uncle, and the comments of his audience. For those questioning why I would come to Reddit honestly, shock and the need for human feedback. I didn't know who to talk to. Though I am writing a few pieces regarding this subject, I was prepared to personally uncover an active crime. I have never previously been in the position to report my suspicion of active crime, let alone one that involves an international website. It was very emotionally upsetting, and I'll be the first to admit that I was ill-equipped to handle something of such severity. Nonetheless, I care, and I want to make sure I do everything I can. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time to help me help her. ****. Update post. Editor's note replaced initials with random names. It's been over a year since I posted about this discovery. I want to thank everyone for their advice and for also encouraging me to better educate myself on how to assist victims. Some basic details: the photos were not explicit but opportunistic, with the OP claiming to be an uncle. OP also made explicit comments about the children in his family, especially one little girl in particular, Molly. I reported this account to multiple entities, including the school district. After my post, I contacted one of the children, who is now a college student, and informed him that photos of him and his siblings were being shared on photo exchange sites, with some captions even insinuating incest between siblings. It was a rather short conversation. He thanked me for reporting to the authorities. Being that he was Molly's brother, I also expressed my concern for her since most photos were of her. All I know about the progress is that the website in question is no longer available in the United States. When accessing using a VPN, the uncle's account is still active, but only 26 photos are on his page, compared to 100 plus in the past. None of the photos were of Molly or her siblings. I am grateful for that. However, I will mention one thing that I find strange. The mother continues to post public photos of her children on FB. I would assume the young man I contacted would have relayed the info to trusted family members. If it were my own children and they had already been inadvertently exposed to internment predators, I would no longer post public photos or information. Maybe I'm reading into it too much. It all still weighs on me quite heavily. Comments. Commenter, you did everything you can do. If the family figured out who did this, they are almost certainly blocked on FB. At this point you are an internet stranger that knows way too much personal info about this family. Time to take a step back and let them sort this out themselves. You have good intentions, but any other attempts to notify them/get involved would be seriously overstepping. Reply, I completely agree and hadn't even considered it. I just got on here for the first time in a long time and had messages asking for an update. Commenter, my SIL doesn't seem to understand why my partner and I were very concerned about pictures of her children being posted publicly. We tried to explain that not everyone who is looking at those pictures are innocent people, but she just brushed it off. I think some people can't comprehend the gravity, or just don't want to, as a coping mechanism. Reply, I think you're right. And it's not just parents. One of the most concerning things taking place, in my opinion, is the fact that schools post sports photos of minors. This is done out of innocence, but sports photos divulge so much information: team name, last name, and school name. Not to mention that schedules are often public. This not only gives a predator's info about the children, but also info about how to find them. Editor's not marked as ongoing as things aren't fully wrapped up. On the other hand, OOP might also never find out anything else. Stories number 31. Aita for being disturbed by my friend's reaction. I 18F broke my leg 3 days ago. It happened while my fiancé 19M, who I am due to marry in 3 months, and my cousin 15M, who is staying with us due to problems at home, were out, and I was alone with the friend 20F who had come to visit. After I broke my leg, my friend spent what seemed like a full 2 minutes laughing at me before calling an ambulance. I was literally begging her to call for help. Even while we were waiting for the ambulance, my friend looked like she was finding the whole thing hilarious. In the hospital, I told my fiancé and both my parents about this, and they were all furious with my friend and told me to not hang out with her, at least not alone with her, but my friend says that she couldn't help finding it funny the way I was screaming and crying, and I have known her for years and I'm questioning if I'm overreacting. Stories number 32. Are my standards too high? Serious question. So I've read a lot of responses from guys in other subs, telling women that they are having trouble finding a good man because their standards are too high. It got me wondering if I expect too much. Here's my issue: when I start talking with a guy, I like to ask questions to get to know him, and I hope he does the same. To me, that shows a genuine interest. But within a day or two I start getting sexual comments. It's a turn off for me. Makes me think they have no interest other than getting me into bed. Today example, I was working. I work in LE. He asked if I get scheduled meal times. I thought he was going to ask me to meet him for a quick bite to eat. I told him I eat when I can in between calls. His response: I would like to eat you in between calls. I met him Friday and we exchanged numbers. Talked just a little yesterday and today, and then I got that. I told him I was no longer interested. Am I overreacting? Are my standards too high in wanting to at least get to know someone a little bit first and maybe even have a first date? Is this the norm for guys and I'm just out of the loop? For context, he is 43. The last guy I talked to that did something similar to this was 34. So it doesn't seem it's an age thing. THX. Stories number 33. My husband 35M is getting drinks with a coworker and I 34F am terrified. Posted on another sub, but I'd love to get more input on how to handle this. Mods, please feel free to remove if this isn't allowed. My husband's getting drinks with a coworker and I'm terrified. My husband, 35M, and I, 34F, have been together for 9 years, married for 5. He was showing me a video on his phone the other day and a text came through from a female name I didn't recognize. I asked who it was and he said she's a colleague from a company that his company works closely with. He has text previews turned off so I couldn't actually see what was said, but my suspicions were raised. I know it's wrong, but when he was in the shower that evening I looked through his phone to see who this girl is and why she's texting him. I found out that they've been getting coffee and lunch during the workday, sometimes to talk about work, sometimes not. Prior to last week, it was maybe once a month communications to plan these, but then she joined a board that he's on last week. So they had a board meeting and then seemed to go out as a group for drinks after until about 11. I did know that he was out with his colleagues during this time and wasn't concerned. What is concerning is that he texted her that night making sure she got home safe and telling her how much fun he had, but that he'd been hoping to have more opportunities to talk with her instead of everyone else. The next morning, he texted her good morning and asking her to drinks one-on-one next week. She agreed and he said he couldn't wait. Of course I looked her up and she's a very beautiful woman, probably in her mid-20s. I asked again later who she was and what their connection was. He reiterated that she's a colleague and is helping get him connected with exciting opportunities in her organization. I know he's been really focused on networking and she has a lot of high-up community connections that it looks like she's introduced him to. He's also a friendly guy who likes to be involved, through board work and professional groups. I don't want to go scorched earth and accuse him of anything inappropriate since my insecurity has been a major issue we've had to work through in the past, but I'm terrified he's going to cheat on me. Would this send off alarm bells for you, and how would you respond without accusing him and ruining the marriage? Stories number 34. To fool by insisting a married couple were mother and child. This happened 3 years ago, but it is, by far, the most embarrassing thing I've ever done. I went to a friend's birthday party at her home. She was more of a friend, so I didn't know her very well and I'd never met half the people there. She has 2 children and several of the attendees were parents who had brought their children along. 2 of her neighbors and their dog were in attendance. One was an Asian woman in her 40s and the other was an Asian teenager. You can probably see where this story is going, but trust me, it gets worse. Both of them were pretty quiet and stayed on the outskirts of the party. I'm the same way, especially at large gatherings. The teenager had headphones on and mostly just walked around with the dog, not saying much. Pretty much what I did at most parties as a teen/young adult. The woman and I ended up at the same patio table and exchanged friendly conversation with each other, as well as the other people sitting there. Before we get to the foo, I'd like to say a couple things in my defense. She had a very quiet voice. It was a loud environment. I often keep an earplug in one ear due to sensory issues. I have mild face blindness. I mentioned something about her son and she replied, "My daughter." I couldn't make out a couple of the words clearly, but I thought she said, she's my daughter. The woman was wearing a "Protect Trans Kids" t-shirt, so I thought I'd just accidentally misgendered her kid. I said something like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Well, 15 minutes later I said something about her daughter. I heard her response clearly this time. "She's not my daughter. She's my wife." The person I thought was a teenage boy was a woman in her 30s. I apologized profusely and she laughed good-naturedly. I could not look either of them in the eye for the rest of the party. I ran into them last June at Pride. Much to my embarrassment, they recognized me. Turns out I got one thing right though, as her wife was now her husband. TLDR, mistakenly referred to a woman's spouse as her child twice. Stories number 35. Aita for refusing to cook for my girlfriend. So this has nothing to do with my relationship in general as it is great but about eating habits. So I am more or less a hobby cook and I am originally from Europe. As a result I cook a lot of food from my home countries. Mom is Greek, Dad is Austrian, and I try new stuff quite often. As an example, I worked at a Korean restaurant in the past and the owner taught me recipes and I frequent cooking sites and own a caption of cookbooks etc. As a result I like to try a lot of different foods and try a lot of different tastes, spicy, sweet, sour etc. My girlfriend on the other hand only really eats local food or fast food which is fine by me. The issue is she wants/likes me to cook her food, which I did for a good while but she basically likes nothing and tries nothing new which results in me having to cook bland stuff and trying nothing new unless I cook myself different food on top of cooking her food which is not an option because I work full time. Now I also got a bunch of new friends and I have taken up inviting them over to cook for them twice a month or so I can try my hand at new stuff and having them enjoy my cooking makes me happy. Well of course my girlfriend is generally there too and where everyone likes it most of the time, she pretty much takes half a bite and orders takeout later in the evening. So I stopped cooking for her and now just make my own food and let her make whatever she wants, which is pissing her off as she can't cook so complains about having to get takeout or getting tired of just eating mac and cheese and such whereas previously I would cook full meals for the both of us. Now I try to meet her in the middle and make extra of what I am having but she rarely eats it unless it is something like a burger. I made a spicy stir fry yesterday and she would not even try it, leaving me with a heap of leftovers. Luckily my neighbor likes my cooking. Thing is I am done meeting in the middle and I don't get why she is mad about it anyways since she won't eat what I cook anyways unless it is tailored to her tastes. But she is adamant about being angry as she says I should make stuff we both enjoy. Now I would be fine with that, if it was not for the fact she is the pickiest eater ever. So am I just being a douche here? Relevant comments. Commenter, NTA. I don't want to be the red flag guy, but food, and your relationship to it, is a relatively important part of a relationship. It seems like you have fundamentally different attitudes as to your diets. That's fine in and of itself, but her entitlement is super crappy. You've tried to compromise, and she hasn't. She can eat what you make something herself, buy food for herself, etc. But chaining you to a world of chicken nuggets and plain hamburgers is not a reasonable option, fellow foodie here. Commenter, that's what I am saying, I am not the type to complain about eating takeout every so often or making fried chicken, burgers etc. or something of the like. Hell I enjoy it sometimes, but she has such a specific bracket of stuff she likes that it is impossible for me to make anything if I take her tastes into account. Like I made her a burger with blue cheese in the meat once, she thought it was disgusting, so I can't even experiment with the stuff she does like. Commenter, dear God, run screaming. Seriously though, I'm a bit of a hobby cook myself, and that level of restriction would drive me up a wall. I rarely make the same meal twice, because I love to experiment with the ingredients. To have her completely turn up her nose at something as moderate and delicious as a blue cheese burger would drive me nuts. That's definitely not to say that I am opposed to more mundane but still delicious meals. I like burgers, mac and cheese, and chicken nuggets a lot, but they are for sure convenience foods. Based on my own experience, I wonder if your GF understands that cooking is a hobby as well as a means of sustenance for you. Reply, that is exactly the issue for me. I can't do with the restrictions. Like even if I were to again meet in the middle and agree to alternate days where I cook for her tastes and the next day cook for me, I would still end up eating within the same bracket of shite 15 out of 30 days, and if I could do small add-ons at the very least to have a little bit of experimentation it would be one thing, but even that is rarely within the realm of possibilities. Yeah, I am not opposed to the whole fast food stuff either, but it seems like something you eat a few times a year, not something you eat at the very least once a week. I mean back in Europe I would eat fast food perhaps once a year. She does understand. I mean I am pretty clear about enjoying cooking and I am pretty clear about it being a hobby. Reply, NTA, what are you supposed to do? Only eat food you don't like? If she wants home-cooked meals and doesn't like what you want to make, she needs to cook for herself. Maybe every once in a while cook something you both enjoy, but it shouldn't be every night. Reply, well, it is not even that I dislike a burger and such, because I don't. There is plenty of interesting stuff you can do with a burger. The issue is that there is one rigid way she likes a burger, and once I experiment she makes weird faces and dislikes it, whereas I try new stuff a lot and I dislike eating the same stuff twice in a week more or less. Commenter: this is incredibly rude on top of her being ridiculously picky. If someone makes you a meal, the least you can do is be gracious about it. If you genuinely don't like it you don't have to eat it, but making faces? How disrespectful and childish. Was she spoiled by her parents? I kind of doubt. She is literally incapable of enjoying anything but the most basic kids menu food. I dated a super picky eater and he was that way because his mom pandered to his pickiness his whole life to the point he wouldn't even try anything new. Reply: yeah, that probably was a part of why this all sort of rubs me the wrong way. I mean, it is one thing to dislike what I make, it is another to act childish and rude about it. She wasn't spoiled, but she did grow up basically eating fast food and the basic mashed potatoes, canned veggie, and meat type diet, which is weird considering her mom is Latin American. Update. So, it has been roughly 1 month and a week or two since I made this post, and I was apparently asked for updates multiple times, even rather recently despite the post being old. Unfortunately, I sort of lost my account since I got a new phone and completely forgot about logging into Reddit, so I ended up looking at my old phone and saw a few more replies, and that brought me back to this post. So, quite a bit has happened in the meantime, so let's just jump right into it. I am sorry, I watched Philip D. Franco earlier. So roughly a week after the post, me and my girlfriend had a rather large argument, mostly due to how she was behaving towards me, which as some pointed out was rather disrespectful. The argument was triggered after one of my dinner parties where she behaved in the way I described, where she tasted like one element of the dish, put it away and did not eat any more. Now, as you may imagine, I was feeling embarrassed in front of my friends, but this time Cleo, the wife of a friend I usually invite, spoke up and told her she was acting extremely rude, which then resulted in some of my other friends saying the same, and well, the party was ruined. My girlfriend got mad and in the late evening this argument happened. I was pretty nasty to her, she was pretty nasty to me, and we barely spoke for 3 days. But after she spoke to her mom, who agreed that she was behaving badly, she decided to apologize and we made some deals concerning cooking. 1. She would start cooking with me. 2. She would try new things. 3. She would no longer act rudely, and if she did not want something she would not join a dinner party instead of acting snobbishly and not eating anyways. 4. She would eat healthier, since I also told her her diet was gonna kill her at some point. In the last 5 or so weeks there have been large changes. She has opened up to eating a lot more stuff slowly but steadily. She has realized there is a lot more that is nice to eat beyond bland stuff, and cooking together has been fun. She is really, really horrible at cooking, but we'll get there. So hopefully sooner or later this problem will go away. Anyways, thanks for the judgment and advice everyone. Also, exchanging recipes was rather fun. The corn recipe someone sent me was especially nice. Edit. Also, since someone asked about a previous recipe, this is a comment from my other post where I explained it. Well, I am not sure what you are looking for in terms of recipes, but I can toss you a simple one which I really like. Grilled feta. My mom used to make it when I was young and it is really easy to make. Basically you buy feta, note feta, not white cheese, as they often try to fool you into thinking that garbage is feta, some eggs, a proper baguette, breading, rocket, the salad stuff, a lemon, basil, cherry tomatoes, and well, some dried herb mix. You just split the yolks from the egg whites, whisk the yolks, cut up the feta in lines. You don't have to, as feta is brittle. Dunk the feta in the egg yolks, then dunk it in the breading and make sure it is fully covered. Then you just put a whole bunch of olive oil in a pan and put the feta in. Make sure there is a lot of oil in it. Makes it easier to grill the sides properly. You then just slice up your baguette, put some olive oil and herb mix on it on the sides and slightly toast it. Then you just smear the feta on the baguette, add some tomatoes, basil, and rocket. Squeeze a bit of lemon juice on it and bam, you got a tasty ass starter that barely takes any time and only an idiot would dislike. You can pretty much do the same with halloumi, but you don't have to bread it. Stories number 36. Aita for not dropping everything when my mother was dying and waiting until the funeral home has death certificates before planning anything. TW. Transphobia, family loss, cancer and treatment, mentions of various forms of abuse, physical, mental, emotional, and financial. Edit, TLDR at the bottom. Edit 2, fixed some spelling mistakes I noticed. Hey everyone. Sorry for any spelling or grammar mistakes. I'm on mobile and it's been a long few weeks. First time here and throwaway account. I, 20s NB, am getting some comments and aggressiveness from friends and family of my late mother. She died a few weeks ago from complications due to cancer, and I live halfway across the country, US, and could not afford to drop everything and be there with her. She went from in the ICU as a precaution to end of life in about 4 days. I am also neurodivergent and the nurses were ensuring me that she wasn't that bad up until the point until we were in the last few hours. I had a very, very complicated relationship with my mother. She was my mother and on some level I loved her, but she was narcissistic and abusive. My father died when I was in high school and he was abusive as well, mostly physically. My mother was emotionally, mentally, and financially abusive. Among some of the things she did, she would let the electricity, power, or phone turn off to force me to pay the full bill plus late fees when she could have afforded it. She hoarded and made a mess of the house, then yelled at me for making the messes and insisted I clean it, would even deny guests by telling them that I made the house a mess, would insult and embarrass me publicly, then make fun of me for being upset. Constant gaslighting, you get the point. It all got worse when I came out as transgender. I was able, with the help of my wonderful partner, to get out of that situation and move away. My relationship with my mother was very low contact for years until she was diagnosed with cancer last spring. It was still low contact, but I spoke with her more frequently and had a much better relationship with her at a distance. Still not a great relationship, but something that, after learning who and what she is and how to cope with everything, was a much better relationship than before. Anyway, after she had passed and talking with the funeral home, I decided to have her cremated and hold off on making further arrangements until after the funeral home has copies of the death certificates. I had made a post on social medias, letting people know that when I had the arrangements made, I would make a post about it. Here we are almost 2 weeks later and I'm getting a lot of, "When are the arrangements? Why haven't you come home? Why didn't you go see your mom in the hospital? You know you'll regret that, right? Why haven't you made arrangements yet? Why did you cremate her? She should have been buried." I even had someone call me selfish for making others wait to mourn. A lot of these are people who haven't talked to my mother in years, and my mother had made no plans for arrangements. She also hadn't gotten any sort of life insurance despite me asking her to. Not gonna lie, I still can't afford to fly halfway across the country for this funeral, but I also have a bunch of stuff that I will need to do in person there. I am going to have to crowdfund to be able to afford to go to my own mother's funeral. Someone told me to sell my mother's house to afford to go to the funeral. That I should be ashamed for even considering crowdfunding. Not sure they understand how long it takes to go through probate even though I'm the sole inheritor. WIPTA for any of this? For all of it. TLDR, my abusive mother died kind of suddenly from complications due to cancer. She didn't have any sort of life insurance or arrangements. I couldn't afford to drop everything and fly halfway across the country to be with her in final moments, still not sure how I'm going to afford it for a funeral. People are getting pushy about me coming home and having a funeral. I just want to wait until we have copies of the death certificate so I can get as much done as possible while there. Edit 3, okay, so I'm getting a lot more comments than I thought, a lot quicker than I thought I would. I'm gonna clarify a few things that I've seen pop up in the comments. My mom did have a will. I actually have the copy of it. I have already contacted the attorney who my mom worked with on it. They want some information that I don't currently have access to and won't be able to get access to until I have death certificates or until I can go there and check her house. I am the only child and the only living immediate relative. My mom had people she referred to as cousins, but as far as I'm aware, they are not actually related. My mom was also older, mid-60s. My mom was older when she had me, I'm 26, she was 65. During her treatment I did take a short trip, paid by others, to see her during a point of not knowing if she would recover. She was bedridden and, for lack of better words, not really there. She did recover and then recently went back downhill. Seeing all of the people saying that I'm not obligated to have a funeral legitimately makes me feel better. Like 90% of the people my mom knew are her age or older. Edit 4. I very much sugar-coated the type of person my mom was, and I feel like I need to specify that most people don't know what my relationship with my mother was actually like. Everyone thinks she was a wonderful person. She painted me as a bad child even before I moved out and away. I've not used my dead name in nearly 7 years and she would still call me my birth name and stuff to people behind my back. She only tried when it was convenient for her. She was still blaming the state of her house on me despite the fact I haven't lived there in years. They say don't speak ill of the dead, but if I do have a funeral or any sort of gathering in her honor, I will be saying my piece because sometimes in order to move on and heal you need to speak ill of the dead. Edit 5, so. First, thanks for all the comments, it's very hard to keep up with everything, but I'm trying my best to read all of them. Second, how many of you want updates on this? Because I woke up to learn about people back in my hometown starting some shit and spreading rumors. Update, AITA for not dropping everything when my mother was dying and waiting until the funeral home has death certificates before planning anything. TW, transphobia, family loss, cancer and treatment, mentions of various forms of abuse, physical, mental, emotional, and financial. Hey everyone. I greatly appreciate the support on my original post. Some of y'all seemed invested, so I'm back with a hopefully short update. This is also a whole lot sooner than I thought I'd be. I'll be making a comment for y'all to upvote if you want more updates. Original post TLDR, my abusive mother died kind of suddenly from complications due to cancer. She didn't have any sort of life insurance or arrangements. I couldn't afford to drop everything and fly halfway across the country to be with her in final moments, still not sure how I'm going to afford it for a funeral. People are getting pushy about me coming home and having a funeral. I just want to wait until we have copies of the death certificate so I can get as much done as possible while there. So, in the original post I gave the Cliff Notes version of my mother's abuse and the whole situation with her. My partner's reaction when they read this was, "Wow, you really sugar-coated that." My mother was performatively supportive of me, so everyone thinks she was a wonderful person. A lot of the people messaging me have no idea that I have gone by a different name for nearly 7 years because if I wasn't there she dead-named and misgendered me to people. People mentioned therapy in the comments of the last post. I've been in and out of therapy for years, but I struggle to find a therapist who actually works for me. I'm very self-aware of my issues and what I'm struggling with. As a result, therapists tend to shrug off issues as I logically know how to deal with them. Anyway, now for the updates. I woke up a few days after posting my original post to a message from a family member. Apparently one of my no-contact family members, grandmother and 2 aunts on my dad's side, is telling people that I haven't done anything with my mother's body yet. Basically telling people that I just left her at a morgue to rot, which some of y'all probably think that's less than my mother would deserve. So despite the fact that there are people who know that I had my mother cremated, I've been getting shitty messages about that. Said family members also will not be allowed at the funeral if I end up having one. It's one of the few requests my mom actually made, and even if she hadn't I wouldn't want them there. Good news, should have death certificates by the end of this week. I'm going to be looking for a new attorney for filing probate. I called to ask for resources and help in getting the information they want and basically got told to just look through my mother's mail. I'm out of state and hundreds of miles away. Due to some stuff that happened while my mother was going through treatment, there isn't really anyone I trust to do that for me. So basically the probate attorney I was talking to told me they couldn't help me and to just figure it out. People have already started messaging me about buying things of my mom's and don't seem to understand that I can't legally sell anything until after probate has started. I've learned exactly what sort of condition that house is in from a family friend who is a contractor. It's about what I expected and likely would just need to be torn down. I did call and turn off utilities. A pipe had already burst in the house while my mom was in the hospital and there's no one there, so maybe the cold will actually kill the bugs finally. People are still being judged about me not dropping everything and waiting to have a funeral. People are also trying to argue semantics over the costs of travel and stuff. Like my original notice to everyone on social media happened during holiday travel when last-minute plane tickets were over $1,000. People are now, 2 weeks later, looking up prices on my behalf and then being judgy because it is only like $500 now. They also don't seem to understand that I literally can't afford it as I live paycheck to paycheck. That's all I've got for the moment. I have a feeling shit is going to hit the fan either at the funeral or if I tell people I've decided not to have a funeral or anything. Sorry if this is a little all over. Between this situation and everything going on in this country, I'm just so tired. Edit. For anyone who missed it or is suggesting donating to science, I had my mother cremated. For those suggesting that I wash my hands of the whole situation, her house, property, and whatnot has the potential to be worth it monetarily even after paying her debts. The house and vehicles are all paid off. For anyone who thinks that is selfish or something, my mom literally stole money from me for years. I'm struggling financially, living paycheck to paycheck, and could use the money from the estate. Stories number 37. I'm so sick of people thinking I'm okay with racism, sexism, and homophobia just because I'm straight, white, and male. Almost every day at work, I get at least one douchebag who will come into the store and do something related to the statements above. It's constant. I'll have people come in and make blatantly rude sexist comments about my female coworkers who are right next to me. I'll have them talk shit about the Hispanic family that I just got done doing business with just because they're talking in Spanish, or they'll just casually drop the hard R when talking about some anecdotal story of theirs, or they'll get political and start talking about gay and trans people in such a despicable light. They all think I'm their friend and think just like they do, but all I can do is stand there and take it, but every time it happens I physically and painfully cringe and get filled with second-hand embarrassment. It's insane that these are real people. Stories number 38. My aunt is trying to ruin my wedding. Family drama. I'm getting married tomorrow and my narcissistic aunt just tried to ruin my wedding by creating chaos, because what else would she do? This aunt has a long history of accepting invitations to events and then creating some elaborate story days or sometimes hours before to not come. However, she seemed excited enough this time and I thought maybe it was an important enough milestone for me so she will finally show up. Keep in mind I've been talking to her about the wedding frequently. She showed me her dress, asked for directions to find the venue, asked me to invite her sons. Originally only her was invited because I don't have a strong enough relationship with them and because we are having a small wedding. We invited her months ago and until yesterday I would never have guessed what has transpired in the last 24 hours. My aunt messaged me to ask me to invite her mother, a very ill and fragile lady who's 92 years old. I said yes and that I needed to check with the venue to accommodate her. Her mom uses a wheelchair and she travels with a nurse, so it wouldn't be only her but also the nurse that I had to make room and get food for. I spent hours trying to figure things out with the venue folks. Keep in mind this is happening 2 days before the wedding. After that initial message she then said, no, sorry for asking, it was rude for me to ask you that so close to the date. She went silent, didn't answer messages or phone calls, for more than 12 hours, but she sent a message to the group chat with all the guests saying she wouldn't attend but said nothing to me directly. I message her again thinking something bad happened, I was so worried about her. Then she finally replies back and tells me that she's deeply offended, me could not tolerate anyone making her beg for her mom to attend any event, she never had to beg BTW. Oh, and he adds that she still loves me but that it was a very rude thing for me to do even when I was too by her before many times of the fragile state of her mom and how difficult it was for her to be outside. I told her that I was trying to be mindful of her condition and that it was a very hurtful thing to do, that I was disappointed of her actions. She then proceeded to tell me that I was closed-minded and that she was not going to attend because I didn't not deserve her presence and that I was not that young anymore. I should be sleeping right now but needed to write this down somewhere to make sense of what happened. Stories number 39. A step-by-step guide to those wanting to leave the USA permanently. Hi. Lately, I have been seeing more and more videos made by Americans, especially women and families with children, about how and why they left the USA. I fully and wholeheartedly understand and support them. I have also seen a lot of commenters saying that they wish they could leave but they are low income, have a disability or have children. There are various routes into Europe and disability alone does not disqualify you from making your home here. Here I will give advice on the best route to Europe for people in different situations as well as dispel some common perceived problems when trying to leave. I currently have 10 Americans in my dance group who have all left the USA via various routes, none of them are wealthy. The links are from UK websites, but most European countries operate in a similar fashion in terms of the types of visas they offer and the time necessary to go from visa to permanent residence. Check the website for your host country of choice. Problem 1. I want to leave but only have a high school diploma. I am a server barely making food and rent, not married to a European and am a multi-generational American so cannot apply for any citizenships. Your options are student visa or domestic worker visa. Student visa, you can apply for a university program at a European university. A lot of them have programs in English. My cousin did her MBA in Denmark fully in English. Some people are doing communications and PR in English in Berlin, for example. You will get a student visa when you are accepted on the course. You can work part-time to support yourself while you study. You can also apply for a student loan that will cover your accommodation if you do not wish to work part-time. Top tip: choose a degree that will allow you to pursue a shortage profession in your host country. One of my fellow dancers was a secretary with only a high school diploma. She moved here on a student visa to study occupational therapy, a big-time shortage profession, and she absolutely loves it. She is also deaf and has a sign language interpreter or a note-taker in all her lectures. She is 41. Moving is not just for people in their 20s. Major respect and applause for her. Student visa, overview, gov.uk, www.gov.uk. Domestic worker visa. If going to university does not appeal to you, try applying for a domestic worker visa. Domestic worker is an au pair, like a nanny but doesn't need childcare qualifications or experience, or a carer who helps elderly people with mobility issues in their home. The advantage of this is that you will not need to pay for food or accommodation as you will be living in the same house where you work. You will have your own room and 3 meals included. You will not earn a full salary, because of free food and accommodation, but will earn something called a keep for weekly expenses and such. Some people working as domestic workers also study part-time, either a trade or a degree. For example, one of my friends from Slovakia came as an au pair with very basic English, attended an English course in the evening 3 times per week and Sunday was her day off. In 18 months, she was almost fluent in English, because of being exposed to it all the time, found a job as a receptionist, moved out and it was onwards and upwards from there. Also, don't think that this route is only for women. There are male au pairs and especially carers out there. Overseas domestic worker visa, overview, gov.uk, www.gov.uk. If you have a degree/in-demand skills or work for a multinational company, a skilled worker visa or a digital nomad visa may be your best option. Skilled worker visa, shortage professions. If you are a qualified nurse, engineer, architect, software engineer, or work in any other shortage profession, you can apply for a shortage profession visa. Most European countries have eerily similar shortage profession lists, and they include most STEM, science, technology, engineering, medicine, professions, certain artistic skills, etc. Here is a link for the current shortage professions in the United Kingdom. Skilled worker visa, shortage occupations, gov.uk, www.gov.uk. Remember, most European countries have similar shortages. Digital nomad visa. If you have a remote job, whether self-employed or working for a company, you can apply for a digital nomad visa. You can even ask your current employer whether you can do your job remotely or whether you can be transferred to their branch abroad. 58 countries with digital nomad visas, the ultimate list, nomadgirl.co. Other routes. Citizenship. If you have a grandparent born in Europe, you are likely entitled to citizenship by descent. Most European countries such as Germany, France, Netherlands, United Kingdom offer citizenship to children/grandchildren of people born on their territories. Some countries such as Italy offer citizenship to anyone who can prove an ancestor was born in Italy in 1921 or later. So, if you have an Italian surname and there are records of when your Italian ancestor immigrated to the USA, you can use that to apply for Italian citizenship. Domestic partner visa. Marrying, or in some countries just pursuing a domestic partnership without legally marrying, a European citizen entitles you to get a right of abode, aka indefinite leave to remain, after a certain time period. Often spouses/partners are asked to undergo interviews with the immigration officials. They undergo the same interview separately to check for any major discrepancies in the answers, i.e. one person says we met on a beach and the other we met in a cafe, lol. You can prepare for the interviews if you are called to them. Not everyone is. You can also marry someone if you are honest with them from the start that you are marrying for paperwork only and they wholeheartedly agree. Do not pay them for it because that is what makes the venture illegal. I personally know about a dozen people who have successfully married into Germany, Canada, and Sweden. 3 of them are my cousins and others my friends and acquaintances. Their spouses agreed to help them because they were either students wanting free accommodation, the visa seekers were paying the rent anyway and just told them to move into the other room, or they were single parents and made a deal in terms of helping them get residence if they look after their children. Some were close friends for many years beforehand. No money changed hands in any case. Not everyone dares to go the marriage route, which is understandable. Some people consider the risks outweigh the benefits, and that's okay. Teaching English abroad. I do not know much about this route, but it is possible to get a visa specifically to teach English abroad. There were 2 Americans on that route in my building when I was living in Spain. Common myths and misconceptions. I found a country and a visa route I am eligible for, but I have children. What do I do? Whichever visa you get, your children will get an automatic dependence visa if they are under 18 regardless of the number of children that you have or your marital status. If your children are 18 or over, they could apply for a student visa or family visa. Countries with a family visa allow adult children to apply as children. The same applies to spouses/partners. If you are moving with your spouse, they will get an automatic spousal visa. It is better, however, if the spouse can get a visa on their own, i.e. student visa, because if one partner has a work visa for example and their contract is terminated for whatever reason, the other partner then has to return with them. If they have a different visa, then they do not. 2. I have a disability, chronic medical condition, and I am afraid other countries will not allow me to settle there because of it. I can't speak for every country in the world, as there may well be countries that don't allow people with disabilities to work/settle there, but that is not the case for European countries. I personally know recent immigrants with disabilities, immigrated 1 or 2 years ago, ranging from deaf, blind, using mobility aids, and a non-disabled woman whose daughter has type 1 diabetes. 3. If I leave the USA, I will have to pay taxes in both the USA and my host country unless I give up my citizenship. You will have to file in both countries. You will only have to pay taxes in the USA if your annual income is $150,000 or more, which is not most people. You are unlikely to fall into that category. The USA has a treaty with certain countries where you don't have to pay double tax regardless of your income. Also, you don't have to give up your USA citizenship, as most European countries allow dual citizenship. Last but not the least, do not limit yourselves to Europe, Canada, or Oceania. There are many so-called emerging or newly industrialized countries with an excellent quality of life and a similar standard of living. I heard great things about Japan, South Korea, and most of Southeast Asia, Thailand, Laos, etc., from Americans living there. Countries such as Ecuador, Argentina, Uruguay, and Chile are also highly recommended, as is most of Central America and the Caribbean. Costa Rica, Guadeloupe, and the Dominican Republic. There is a whole world out there. In certain circumstances those other options may be a better choice, especially if one is of non-European descent or non-Christian. For example, a Thai American may feel more at home in Southeast Asia, depending on how they were raised and how culturally connected they are to their culture of origin. Someone Jewish American wrote a blog post on the topic a couple of years ago and why they chose Laos over a European country. Smart choice. They said that due to most historical antisemitism occurring in Europe and other Christian-majority countries, they personally could never feel safe in a European/Christian-majority country, or Muslim-majority. They were living in Laos for 7 years at the time and said they never experienced antisemitism ever. Funny looks, curiosity, and maybe even some misconceptions due to being a foreigner. Stories number 40. Aita for reneging on letting someone live with me because they said they won't sleep with me. I'm 29M, she is 28F. We've been platonic friends since university a few years ago. We're not super close friends but have hung out on occasion, although we used to hang out a lot more on campus. She has fallen under financial duress and I offered to let her live in my spare room while she gets her bearing. This was a month or so in planning, and she was due to move in the second week of February. We were talking more about our situation going forward and she said an off-the-cuff remark, "Just be aware I will not be sleeping with you." Just out of the blind. We don't have that type of relationship, nor do I want it to progress to that. I don't even joke flirt with her or put innuendos in my speech, so this took me by surprise. She had an assumption I had an ulterior motive. I told her as much and said that comment make me think of our friendship in a different, negative, way and I have to think a bit more about our arrangements. I said as much to be polite, but what I want is more time to articulate a way to back out. She said it was just a standard rule that she'd tell to any roommates. I am not a woman so I don't know if this is how it is, but it seemed really condescending. Aita here. Sorry, I am ESL so if my grammar is bad, my mistake. Stories number 41. Wibita for not wanting to participate in my family's one gift swap Christmas idea. So, last night, I, 22M, went with my mom to visit my brother, Leaf, 27M, at his apartment. My other brother, Dax, 24M, was also there. We were hanging out, eating, and just catching up since it's rare we're all free at the same time. Christmas is going to be weird this year because for the first time, we're not all spending it together. Dax is spending the holiday with his in-laws, wife, and kids, and Leaf is doing the same. I'll be with my mom, stepdad, my partner, and grandma. We're planning to get together sometime after Christmas so we can all see each other, but it's not the same. Anyway, while we were talking, Dax brought up an idea he's really excited about. He wants us all to spend $50 on a single gift, wrap it in neutral wrapping paper, and then do a gift swap. The way it works is the first person picks a gift, and each person after can either pick a new gift or steal an opened one. At the end, the first person gets one last chance to swap with anyone if they want. The thing is, I really don't want to do this. To me, Christmas isn't about receiving gifts, it's about giving them. I love spending time picking out something thoughtful for each person, something I think will genuinely make them happy. Seeing their reactions means a lot to me. This one gift swap thing just feels too impersonal and, honestly, kind of corporate. And before anyone asks, no, my brother isn't tight on money. He's actually pretty well off, much more than me, but that's not the point. So, Wibta, if I told my brother I'd rather not participate in his gift swap idea? I'd still love to give everyone personal gifts, but I just don't want to do this impersonal gift exchange. It just doesn't feel right to me. Edit. Wow, I wasn't expecting so many replies, and I can't respond to everyone, so I thought it would be best to put this all in an edit. Anyway, everyone in my family is pretty well off, including all of Dax's in-laws, Leaf and his in-laws, etc. Leaf and his wife aren't really into the idea of doing White Elephant this year, and neither are my mom or stepdad. We all know how complicated Christmas gets as the family grows, and we'd honestly prefer to do Secret Santa instead. Also, just for context, Dax's mother-in-law is outright refusing to participate in White Elephant and is insisting on an expensive gift instead. If she doesn't get one, she won't come to their Christmas celebration, which is just adding to the drama. My brother Dax can be very controlling, and most of the time we just let him have his way because it's easier than dealing with the tension if he doesn't. He tends to make everyone uncomfortable if things aren't exactly how he wants them. My mom also isn't thrilled about doing White Elephant because of what happened last year. She and my grandma booked a holiday home in Salem for Christmas, with my mom covering about 90% of the cost and my grandma pitching in around 10%. But then my brothers ended up getting our grandma a gift to thank her while giving nothing to our mom, who had covered most of the expenses. To make it worse, Dax and Leaf both got their mothers-in-law expensive gifts, but didn't even think to give our mom something small. My mom isn't materialistic at all, she'd be happy with just a thank you card. But that's part of why she's not on board with White Elephant this year. For me, I'd rather skip getting a gift altogether than end up with something I don't want. So, this year, I've decided to focus on gifts for my partner. It's her second Christmas with us, and her family doesn't celebrate, as well as gifts for my mom, stepdad, grandma, and all the nieces and nephews. At the end of the day, we just want to find a middle ground that works for everyone. We're hoping Dax can feel satisfied too, but we'll see. I'll keep you updated on any compromises or what ends up happening in December. Update. So, I posted here a while back about this, Wibta for not wanting to do my family's one gift swap Christmas idea. Well, buckle up because here's the update. You can find the original on my page. TLDR recap. My brother Dax, 24M, suggested doing White Elephant for Christmas instead of exchanging individual gifts. This idea was not well received. I, 22M, am in a family group chat with Dax, my other brother Leaf, 27M, their wives Megan, 29F, and Blair, 27F, our mom, 61F, stepdad, 60M, grandma, 79F, stepsisters Edie, 22F, and Tatum, 19F, and my partner Maeve, 23F, who isn't in a chat but is very relevant here. Dax announced his idea like a dictator issuing a decree, not like, hey, thoughts? Let's just say, the family vibes have been shaken. What went down? A few days ago, Grandma told us Dax had something important to share. Turns out, it was him rehashing the White Elephant plan, complete with rules. And not like, what do you guys think? More like, this is what we're doing, no discussion. Here's the thing about Dax, he's a control freak. Last year, he strong-armed us into Secret Santa, which most of us hated but didn't challenge because, you don't mess with Dax. This year, I decided to grow a spine and said, hey, this isn't fun for most of us. White Elephant feels corporate and joyless, it's not what Christmas means to our family. I even suggested sticking to Secret Santa if the issue is cost. Apparently, this was blasphemy. The fallout. Not long after, Mom called me in tears. She admitted the White Elephant idea made her feel awful. She said it hurts that her sons don't want to buy her a Christmas gift anymore, especially when she does so much for everyone. She then went full mom mode in the group chat. She said she doesn't like the White Elephant idea because she loves personal gift giving. She directly asked Megan and Blair if they plan to skip individual gifts for their own families too. Both Megan and Blair said, oh no, we'll still get individual gifts for our families. Cue Mom's second call to me, angrier and sadder. She feels like she's being treated as a second-class family member by her sons, who'll put effort into gifts for their in-laws but can't be bothered for her. And honestly, she has a point. My brothers either buy her last-minute junk or forget entirely. Maeve and the stepsisters joined the rebellion. I called Maeve to vent, and she was fuming. She's been budgeting over $300 to get thoughtful gifts for everyone, first Christmas with my family, wants to make a good impression. She said if it's going to be White Elephant, it's a waste, her gifts won't even go to the right people. Meanwhile, my stepsisters Edie and Tatum jumped in to say they also hate the White Elephant idea. Edie even called it lazy on Dax's part. Hero. Dax, feeling the heat, proposed a vote, White Elephant or Secret Santa. By this point, though, I was done. I dropped out entirely, and so did Edie, Tatum, Maeve, Mom, Stepdad, and Grandma. Enter Blair, the plot twist queen. Blair suddenly chimed in with a new idea, since so many people are dropping out, let's just do gifts for the kids. She framed it like a compromise, but really, it was her way of shutting down the adults entirely. Dax, Leaf, and Megan jumped on board, and Dax declared, Christmas is only for kids. Okay, sure Dax. Where things stand, so now. It's chaos. Mom, Maeve, Edie, Tatum, and I have decided we'll exchange gifts with each other. We're still getting presents for the kids because they're innocent in all this, but Dax, Leaf, Megan, and Blair. They're getting nothing from us. Christmas plans are totally up in the air, and honestly, this whole thing has killed the holiday vibe for me. It's a mess, and while it's not the resolution I wanted, at least I know who's on Team Christmas spirit. Final thoughts. If Christmas is just for kids now, then Dax, Leaf, Megan, and Blair can go be kids together. Meanwhile, I'll be over here with my mom, stepsisters, and Maeve, celebrating with love, laughter, and thoughtful gifts. So yeah. Not the happy update, but there it is. Thoughts? Am I still the a-hole? Also, any tips for surviving awkward family Christmas dinners would be much appreciated. Update: holy freaking shit, my brother might be in debt. I'm at work right now, so sorry for any grammar mistakes. I'm literally typing this on my phone while heading back to my desk. But yeah, Dax finally came clean to my mom about why he's been pushing the whole Secret Santa thing last year and this white elephant deal this year. Turns out, he's drowning in debt. Apparently, Dax and his wife Megan have been spending like they're loaded, fancy vacations, high-end crap, you name it. They've almost maxed out their credit cards trying to live like they're in a Real Housewives episode. Now they're up to their eyeballs in debt. Dax admitted to my mom that he's dealing with some heavy PTSD and said he's going to start therapy because he's lost and doesn't know what to do. My mom told him straight up, he's gotta quit blowing money like this and walk away from this stupid deal on the new house they're trying to buy. But Dax being Dax, he's not listening. He's terrified his friends and coworkers are gonna judge him if he doesn't keep up this whole rich guy act. Like, dude, nobody cares as much as you think they do. Egos are wild, huh? Look, I feel bad for my brother, I really do. But at the same time, how do you spend money like it's Monopoly cash and not think it's gonna catch up to you? Still, I wish I could help him. I can't help financially, I don't make much, but I can at least help him and Megan with the kids so they can maybe figure this mess out. As for Christmas, I tried to be petty. I thought about only buying gifts for the family members, not doing this white elephant nonsense, plus my nieces and nephews. But my guilt kicked in, so I ended up getting something for Dax, Megan, Leaf, and Blair too. I know they're probably not gonna get me anything, but whatever. Christmas isn't about presents anyway. I just hope Dax wakes up from this and learns to stop spending money he doesn't have. But I can't say that to him, you know. Younger brother and all that. Anyway, holy shit. If there's another update, I'll post. Hope you guys have a good holiday. Relevant comments. Commenter: YTA, no gifts for anyone would have been better. You are just enabling the toe of them. Reply: you can see it that way, but like I said, I don't care if I get gifts or not. I just like giving personal gifts. I love buying things for people because gift giving is my love language. The whole point of my original post was that I was upset my brother was taking away my choice to buy gifts for people and trying to dictate what everyone else does. I didn't want to do a white elephant exchange because I don't like buying generic gifts. I want to get each person something I know they'll like, not something that'll just sit on a shelf collecting dust or get re-gifted to someone else. Like I said, I love buying gifts for people. I'm not in it for what I get in return. P.S. I'm going to do everything I can to help my brother and his family. I'm planning to pick up an extra job or two so I can make some more money and help him out with his debt. This is what I've always done. I help my family and friends get out of their debt messes because my two main love languages are gift-giving and acts of service. Of course, I don't want my brother to suffer, but I do hope he sees this as a learning experience and appreciates what he has. Commenter: so not only are you enabling them but you're getting a job to help them from their own mess. I hope you're a troll because you are an idiot if not. Reply: look, it's a complicated situation. I've always been the kind of person who wants to take on everyone's problems, figure out what's bothering them, and fix it. I'm a fixer, that's just how I am. I worry about Dax. We don't have the best relationship, and we didn't really talk much after he moved out 7 years ago, but whenever he's had trouble, I've done what I could to help. I'm worried he might start drinking again because of the stress and depression. He's been sober for 2 years now, and I'm really proud of him for that. But I don't know what to do. Part of me thinks I should step back and let him handle this himself since he's the one who got himself into this mess. But another part of me just wants to fix it all, figure it out, and make everything okay. Honestly, I feel like crying because I feel so bad for my brother. I don't want to enable him, but I also don't want him to suffer. Nothing about this is black and white, it's all shades of gray. Final update. This will be my final update on this post, and honestly, probably my last post on Reddit for a while. I'm planning to sign out and focus on dealing with everything going on. It's super late here, and I just got back from seeing my mom. Apparently, someone sent her the post, and she told me she was disappointed, not in a harsh way, but because I've been carrying the weight of trying to fix my brother Dax's issues all on my own. I don't know why, but hearing her say it made something in me finally break. I realized I've been struggling so much internally without even noticing. My mom said she could tell something was wrong because I've stopped eating properly and, in her words, look like a Victorian child. I didn't fully realize how much stress I've been carrying until now. She reminded me that it's not my job to take on all of this. She also said that Dax, as stubborn and impulsive as he is, will figure out his own mess in time. On top of that, my mom's been talking to Dax directly about everything. She suggested that he and his partner consider backing out of the house deal and looking for somewhere cheaper. She reassured him that no one would think any less of him for doing so. As for the Christmas situation, we've decided to cancel the gift swaps with the original group that wanted to do the white elephant exchange. I'm planning to save the gifts I had for them and give them out on their birthdays instead. I've also made a big decision to step back from my family for a while and focus on moving forward with my plans to relocate my job to Zurich. I care about Dax and always will, but I need to start being less selfless and more selfish about my own life. Dax is smart. He'll figure things out. I'll be there to support him emotionally and morally, but I've decided I can't support him financially anymore. Thanks to everyone who's followed along and offered advice. I've made another big decision to check myself into therapy to address the depression and mental health struggles I've been ignoring for years. It's time to stop pushing that aside and finally deal with it. Take care, everyone. New update. White Elephant update plus holiday chaos and personal struggles. So, I think people have been wanting updates on the White Elephant situation. We all met up on December 26th, and Dax actually got us a gift, but it wasn't individual gifts. It was a household gift, portraits of their kids. It was cute, though, and I'll be taking them to Switzerland with me. Leaf also got me a small ornament with my name on it, which is now proudly displayed in my box. But wow, that day was chaotic. I got hit in the back of the head by one of those little plastic balls from a kid's golf set. It hurt a bit, and I was low-key worried that something in my parents' house would get broken. My parents weren't too pleased that Dax and Leaf let their kids run around with outside toys inside, but they didn't want to make a big deal of it, plus they were super busy preparing dinner. Oh, and my partner and I had a lot of arguments that holiday too. She wants me to move to Switzerland earlier, but I've been dealing with some finance issues, and on top of that, I lost my job. So yeah, the move to Switzerland has been delayed. On a more personal note, I've been struggling a lot with depression and anxiety lately, but I'm trying to stay positive. I don't want to spiral back into those negative thoughts, so I'm doing my best to keep my head above water. Anyway, that's the update. I've been a bit all over the place, but here's to hoping things start to settle down soon. Oh yeah, I was also diagnosed with autism too, so yeah. Stories number 42. Aita for telling my dad he doesn't have a son anymore. I, 17M, want to know if I was an for what I said to my dad. My mom died when I was 2. My dad was single for the next 7-ish years. He was a great dad during that time. He worked hard and still found a way to spend time with me and supported my interests. We went on mini vacations together, went camping, had traditions, and he told me stories about my mom and how much she loved me, and he'd remind me to always feel comforted by the fact I had 2 parents who loved me and one was watching out for me somewhere else. He never made me feel like a burden or like I wasn't loved. When I was around 9 he got way less consistent. He showed up less, was busy more often when the time came for us to hang out, he was no longer around a lot when I needed him. He was still there sometimes. But only sometimes, and sometimes got less and less to the point it became rare he was there. A few weeks before my 11th birthday he told me he'd been dating someone and she had a daughter and he'd invited them to my birthday party and afterward they'd be moving in with me. My 11th birthday was a sore topic. I'd wanted a party with my friends like normal and he insisted on a family party. He told me I was grown enough to miss the friend stuff and focus on the family stuff. His girlfriend and her kid turned out to be the reason. He wanted an excuse to introduce them to everyone. Once they moved in my dad stopped spending any one time with me. He was all about his stepdaughter who was 4. For a while I asked why I couldn't join them and he told me he needed to work on the relationship with her because she didn't have a bio dad in the picture and he and his girlfriend wanted her to see him as her dad. He did all the things we used to do together with her. He'd call it their special thing which stung. On my dad's wedding day they tried to say we had become one family unit and 2 only children became siblings. But I didn't see it that way. I saw it as I'd lost my family and I didn't want the kid who got him instead as my sibling. I tried talking to my dad but he was too busy. I talked to his best friend and he spoke to him for me and dad stopped talking to him after that. The only time he paid any attention to me was when he was angry that I said no to spending time with his stepdaughter. I told him he should spend that time with her instead since it was so important to build that relationship and all. He told me it was important for us to build a sibling relationship too. I told him it wasn't when I wasn't a part of his new family. He told me I should ask his wife to build a mom relationship with me. I reminded him that I already had the best mom and she was looking out for me. Using what he told me about mom to say why I wouldn't. He told me I still needed to spend time with my new sister. I told him I didn't have a sister. Any time I had something parents would normally come to he was already doing something with his stepdaughter. One time it was an award, another time it was a game, another time a talent show. Nobody showed for me. But he always showed for her. I was being bullied a few years ago in school and my principal called Dad to come and talk about it and work out how to help me. My dad said his daughter was in the hospital and he couldn't come. The principal asked him to call when she was out. He didn't. And my dad ignored the call the principal tried to make after. He never even brought it up to me. My friend's dad tried talking to my dad last year and my dad told him to fuck off and stay out of it. I think that's when I gave up and I decided I'd keep my head down, work and get out of there. I have a little over a year before I finish high school and just under a year until I'm 18. I'm working on a plan that means I won't ever need to see or speak to him again. I don't know what happened since New Year's but my dad has started to complain about us never spending any time together or talking. Maybe he misses the fighting ick. Then the other night he sat me down and he said I act like a stranger and he doesn't understand why I'm so resistant to being a part of the family. I told him I'm not a part of the family. I said he has put his stepdaughter first ever since they moved in together and he prioritized her before that even. I said he pulled away from me and focused on her and left me without my parent. He told me it wasn't true and I asked him to tell me one time he put me before her. He got angry and told me I was being petulant. I told him to tell me one time, just one. When he got more angry I told him his non-answer was his answer, he never put me first when it came to her. I told him I was done. I said congrats because you have a daughter now but you don't have a son anymore. My dad told me I don't get to deny our relationship and how dare I hold it against him that he wanted to give a fatherless girl a dad. When I didn't apologize an hour later he told me I should just leave if I felt that way. I went to my friend's house and now he's saying I wasn't supposed to leave and I need to come home and apologize and stop saying I'm not his son anymore. Aita.